A guide for the seeker of inner wisdom. Lesson 1: The Hidden Ones and the Path of Discernment. The Symphony of Sound. The modern world thrums with a symphony of sound, a cacophony of whispers and proclamations that echo through the sacred and the mundane. These voices emerge from the stillness of mountaintop retreats, where sages clad in saffron and ash meditate at sunrise, their words carried by the wind like ancient mantras. They rise from the bustling chaos of city streets, where impassioned speakers gather crowds outside subway exits, their hands gesturing to the heavens as they promise liberation from the 9-to-5 grind. They pulse through the glow of digital screens, where influencers in sleek studios recite mantras of inner peace, or promote crystal grids that are said to channel universal energy. In monasteries, the rhythmic chanting of scriptures fills ancient halls, while in living rooms across the globe, seekers huddle around laptops, eyes wide with curiosity as they watch online courses on chakra alignment and karmic cleansing. Each voice claims to hold a shard of the ultimate truth. Some offer paths to enlightenment, weaving philosophies from the Upanishads, Zen koans, or modern mindfulness techniques, promising a glimpse of the eternal in the present moment. Others dangle promises of healing, whether through the laying on of hands, herbal remedies, or the whispered affirmations of a therapist's voice. Still others whisper seductively of power, the ability to manifest wealth, to bend reality with intention, or to awaken the dormant, inner dragon that will propel the seeker into greatness. And yet, amid these promises, there are those who speak of profound transformation, not the sanitized, Instagram-ready kind, but the raw, life-altering kind that cracks open the ego and asks for surrender. The individuals behind these voices are as diverse as the messages they carry. One might be a monk wrapped in saffron robes, his presence as still as the Himalayas, teaching the art of detachment through centuries-old texts. Another could be a young, glittering witch who sells moonlit oil tinctures and tarot readings to a digital audience, their social media profiles a kaleidoscope of symbols and spells. There are leaders draped in velvet robes or corporate power suits, who command followings with the precision of a CEO, their every word a masterclass in spiritual branding. Titles abound. Enlightened One, High Priestess, Life Coach for Soul Retrieval. Smiles are worn like armor, their polish carefully curated to mask the uncertainty that haunts even the boldest gurus. Communities bloom in the wake of these voices. Some are tightly knit circles of like-minded adherents, gathered in candlelit temples or co-working spaces repurposed as meditation centers. Others are vast, nebulous networks of Twitter threads and Discord servers, where seekers debate the merits of Dharma and dopamine fasts. Teachings take shape as structured systems, 12-step programs for ascension, 7-day detoxes for the soul, or ancient rites reborn as boutique wellness experiences. Yet, for all the differences, these communities share a common purpose: to guide the seeking soul through the labyrinth of modern existence. But the air itself feels heavy with the weight of truths in disguise. Each promise is a gift-wrapped enigma, its beauty carefully curated to allure, its authority bolstered by symbols and stories. Some packages are elegant and earthy, printed on bark paper with hand-drawn mandalas. Others are sleek and digital, their algorithms fine-tuned to mimic the intuition of an oracle. Yet, in this overwhelming chorus, the modern seeker is faced with a question that echoes through time: how does one discern the authentic from the performative, the liberating from the exploitative? The journey of discernment begins not with rejection or blind acceptance, but with a listening that is both open and grounded. For even in the symphony of confusion, the hidden ones whisper their truths, not in grand proclamations, but in the silences between sounds, in the moments of stillness when the seeker, finally empty-handed, begins to hear their own voice echo back. In the midst of this vibrant, ever-shifting mosaic of sensory experiences, a symphony of human voices, technological hums, and the flickering glow of digital and natural light, a profound inquiry emerges, threading itself through the silent recesses of the soul like a persistent, inquisitive wind. It is a question born not of mere curiosity but of existential necessity. How can one, amid the clamor of competing truths and the dazzling haze of modern existence, distinguish the authentic from the spurious? What separates the resonant, steady cadence of a voice rooted in wisdom, compassion, and truth from the hollow, attention-seeking shouts of those who exploit our yearning for clarity, connection, and certainty? The inquiry deepens as we consider the human psyche's inherent vulnerabilities, the hunger for structure in a chaotic world, the ache to belong to a collective, and the seductive allure of perceived superiority. Some voices, cloaked in the rhetoric of authority or wrapped in the velvet of charisma, promise order and purpose, yet their foundations rest on fragile, self-serving ideals. They echo the primal fears and desires that define our nature: fear of isolation, desire to be seen, the intoxicating power of claiming moral or intellectual high ground. These are not always easy to unravel, for they often masquerade as clarity, as if the human soul's hunger for meaning were a marketplace where counterfeit tokens pass for currency. Genuine guidance, by contrast, hums with a subtler resonance. It does not demand allegiance or feign omnipotence. Instead, it invites inquiry, bears the weight of paradox, and acknowledges its own fallibility. It is not born of the need to dominate but to illuminate, the kind of wisdom that asks, "What is true for you?" rather than preaching what should be true for all. Yet, even this distinction is fraught with ambiguity. In an age where authenticity is commodified and dissent is drowned out by algorithm-driven noise, how does one cultivate the discernment to differentiate the sacred from the performative? How does one navigate the labyrinth of conflicting truths, where every answer seems to be both a revelation and a riddle, a light and a shadow? At the heart of this struggle lies a paradox. The more we seek to unmask the counterfeit, the more we risk becoming entangled in the very illusions we wish to escape. The question, then, becomes not just one of external validation but of inner alchemy, of forging within ourselves a mirror so polished it reflects the true nature of the voices we encounter. It is a call to a profound self-awareness, to a quiet vigilance that does not rely on the loudest proclamations but on the still, unshakable center of one's own being. Only then, perhaps, can we begin to hear, as if through the thinnest veil of this world's clamor, the faint but insistent pulse of something real, a voice not of dominance or deception, but of shared humanity, seeking itself, and us. In this contemporary era, we find ourselves at a unique crossroads, blessed with unparalleled spiritual accessibility. The digital age has democratized access to knowledge, allowing seekers from all walks of life to tap into a vast array of spiritual traditions, philosophies, and practices. Information flows like a river, with countless online resources, social media platforms, and spiritual communities at our fingertips. We can easily connect with like-minded individuals, attend virtual workshops, and delve into the teachings of renowned spiritual masters with just a few clicks. However, despite this abundance of spiritual resources, many seekers are left feeling unfulfilled and disconnected. The ease of access to information has created a paradox, where the sheer volume of available knowledge can lead to a sense of overwhelm and confusion. The seeker stands amidst an abundance of wisdom, yet often finds themselves more bewildered than enlightened. The noise of conflicting opinions, the allure of quick fixes, and the pressure to conform to specific spiritual ideologies can create a sense of disorientation, making it challenging to discern what is truly relevant and meaningful. Moreover, the path to spiritual growth and self-discovery is illuminated by countless lights, each offering a unique perspective and promise of liberation. We are bombarded with an array of spiritual practices, from mindfulness and meditation to energy healing and astrology. While these practices can be incredibly valuable, the true north, the inner compass that guides us toward our deepest truth, remains elusive. The seeker is faced with a dizzying array of options, leaving them wondering which path to follow, which teachings to embrace, and which practices to prioritize. In this complex and often confusing landscape, the first and most crucial task for the sincere seeker is not learning a new technique or following a particular doctrine. Rather, it is cultivating the inner capacity for discernment, the art of listening beyond the surface level of information, of feeling the vibration beneath the words, and of recognizing the presence that aligns with the deepest truth within. This involves developing a keen sense of intuition, one that allows us to navigate the spiritual marketplace with clarity and discrimination. Discernment is the ability to distinguish between the superficial and the profound, to recognize the difference between empty rhetoric and authentic wisdom. It is the capacity to listen with an open heart and mind, to feel the resonance of truth, and to sense the presence of the divine. When we cultivate discernment, we begin to see through the veil of dogma and ideology, and instead, tune into the subtle frequencies of the soul. We learn to trust our inner guidance, to follow the thread of our deepest longing, and to embrace the mystery of our own unique spiritual journey. In a world where spiritual information is plentiful, yet meaningful connection can feel scarce, the art of discernment is more essential than ever. It is the key to unlocking the true potential of spiritual growth, allowing us to navigate the complexities of the modern spiritual landscape with clarity, confidence, and heart. By cultivating discernment, we can move beyond the superficial and tap into the depths of our own inner wisdom, ultimately discovering the true north that guides us toward our highest potential and most profound fulfillment. The world, indeed, functions as a vast and dynamic marketplace where spiritual goods are exchanged, and the commodity of enlightenment is bought and sold. Here, one encounters a myriad of characters, each playing their part in this grand bazaar of the soul. There are the performers of wisdom, those charismatic figures who, with eloquence and charm, disseminate teachings that promise to unveil the mysteries of existence. They often dress their messages in attractive packaging, adorned with the trappings of ancient traditions, mystical experiences, and profound philosophical insights, making their offerings almost irresistible to the seeker of truth. Alongside these performers, one finds the merchants of mystery. These are individuals who have mastered the art of wrapping the unknown in an aura of intrigue, making the obscure and the esoteric seem like the ultimate keys to unlocking the secrets of the universe. With a deep understanding of human psychology, they craft their messages in a way that tantalizes the imagination, promising hidden knowledge and exclusive paths to enlightenment that only they can provide. Their packaging is often adorned with symbols of mystical power, sacred geometry that supposedly holds the blueprint of the universe, and arcane rituals that, they claim, bridge the mundane and the divine. Then, there are the architects of illusion, perhaps the most masterful of all in this marketplace. They masquerade as keepers of the sacred flame, guardians of ancient wisdom, and teachers of timeless truths. With a commanding presence and an air of authority, they quote scriptures, not just from one tradition but from many, weaving a tapestry of universal wisdom that appears both authentic and profound. They perform rituals with precision, using the power of symbolism, music, and communal participation to create an atmosphere of reverence and awe. Their words are laced with passion as they speak of universal love, compassion, and the interconnectedness of all things, touching the deepest aspirations of the human heart. These figures often possess a seemingly vast knowledge, garnered from various spiritual traditions, which they use to craft a narrative of spiritual evolution and enlightenment. Their promises are alluring, offering not just personal growth and transformation but a path to transcendence, a way to achieve a state of being that is beyond the limitations of the mundane world. They create environments of reverence, using the very tools of discernment, symbols, sacred geometry, incantations, and sacred texts, to inspire and to guide. However, if the seeker is not vigilant, these same tools can be used to bind them more tightly to the influence of these spiritual leaders, blurring the lines between liberation and entrapment. The seeker, in this marketplace, must be discerning. The journey towards enlightenment is personal and internal, and true spiritual growth requires an honest exploration of one's own heart, mind, and soul. The danger lies in becoming so enamored with the external trappings of spirituality, the charisma of the teacher, the allure of the teachings, the sense of community and belonging, that one forgets to look within. True wisdom, universal love, and the sacred flame that these performers, merchants, and architects speak of are not commodities to be bought or sold. They are states of being that emerge from a deep and sincere engagement with one's own spirituality. In navigating this complex and often bewildering landscape, the seeker must cultivate discernment, not as a tool for judgment, but as a means of clarification. This involves questioning, seeking, and exploring with an open heart and mind, yet also with a critical and reflective spirit. It requires understanding that the ultimate authority lies not in the teacher, the tradition, or the scripture, but in the depths of one's own conscience and the wisdom of one's own heart. Only then can one truly distinguish between those who offer genuine guidance and those who, intentionally or not, lead astray. In this way, the seeker can navigate the marketplace of spiritual goods with clarity and purpose, moving ever closer to the realization of their true nature and the attainment of genuine spiritual enlightenment. In the ever-evolving landscape of ideas, there are figures who emerge with compelling charisma, polished rhetoric, and the noblest of intentions. Yet, at the heart of many such individuals or groups lies a subtle, often unconscious alignment with the ego, a force that thrives on affirmation, admiration, and control. The ego, by its very nature, is insatiable. It craves validation through likes, followers, and the outward trappings of influence. These figures, though they may present themselves as seekers of truth, often construct elaborate platforms, podcasts, social media empires, or exclusive communities, to amplify their voices and attract a loyal following. They may stage grand declarations, design rituals of initiation to mark membership in their sphere of thought, or even cultivate a cult-like reverence for their authority. In doing so, they build not just a message, but a movement, one that demands allegiance, adherence to specific doctrines, and an emotional investment from those who wish to belong. Yet, the essence of truth, true, universal, and transcendent, resists the structures these figures so meticulously craft. It is not a commodity to be sold, nor a trophy to be hoarded by those who claim to wield it. The essence of truth does not reside in the grandeur of a spoken word, no matter how eloquently it is delivered, nor in the labyrinthine complexity of a system that obscures as much as it reveals. It is equally absent from the perceived authority of a speaker, no matter how revered or feared they may be. Instead, truth is felt, not as a loud proclamation, but as a gentle resonance, a quiet hum that aligns with the deepest currents of one's being. It is experienced in the stillness of early morning or the hush of a forest, in moments when the mind is still and the heart is open. It is the intuitive knowing that arises not from external validation but from an inner attunement to the world's subtle harmony. This resonance is not bound by hierarchy or hierarchy. It is not earned through degrees, titles, or the number of people who echo your words. It is discovered in the quiet chambers of the heart, where love, compassion, and clarity dwell unbidden. It is recognized in the stillness of the soul, where the ego's clamor fades, and one is left with pure awareness, a connection to something vast, ancient, and unshakable. To truly encounter truth, one must turn inward, beyond the noise of social validation and the lure of intellectual spectacle, to the undisturbed space where authenticity and wisdom quietly coexist. There, in that sacred silence, the essence of truth is not just heard but known, not just understood but felt, a living, breathing force that transcends the need for intermediaries, platforms, or allegiance. This version delves deeper into the contrast between ego-driven influence and the quiet resonance of authentic truth, using vivid imagery, metaphors, and a reflective tone to enrich the original message. The Masters walk amongst us. In a world that often glorifies spectacle and charisma, the true teachers, the bearers of an ancient, living flame of wisdom, stand apart, not because they shine brightest, but because they exist in the quiet spaces where light is felt rather than seen. These are the sages who do not wear their knowledge on their sleeves, who do not parrot mantras or stand atop pulpits demanding attention. Instead, they walk among us, humble, unassuming, and often mistaken for ordinary. To the hurried eye, they may seem plain or unremarkable, their presence dismissed in the frenzy of modern life, where seekers chase validation in the form of loud proclamations or dramatic revelations. Yet within their stillness lies a power that transcends the noise. Their teaching is not a product to be sold or a performance to be witnessed. They do not groom disciples in the traditional sense, nor do they cultivate followings through persuasion or coercion. To them, the notion of a follower is antithetical to their purpose. True wisdom, they understand, cannot be transmitted through hierarchy or ceremony. It is a current that flows when two hearts are aligned, when the student is ready and the master is present. Their influence is not transactional but relational, born of authenticity and an unspoken contract of trust. When they speak, if they do at all, their words pierce because they are not crafted for applause but for awakening. When they remain silent, their silence is itself a lesson, a reminder that truth often resides in the spaces between thoughts. The Masters reject fame as a prison and recognition as a chain. They are unburdened by the desire to be seen or heard, for their work is not for the world's approval but for the soul's unspoken longing. Unlike those who wield authority through titles or institutions, they operate beyond ego's realm. Their power is not in commands but in example, in the quiet radiance of a life lived unflinching, unswayed by the tides of opinion or the allure of power. To the untrained eye, they may appear detached, but this is a misreading. They are fully engaged, yet not invested in the outcome. Teachers of the unteachable, they embody the paradox of action without attachment. Over time, their impact reveals itself like the slow unfolding of a lotus at dawn. It is not a revolution but a revolution within, a shift so subtle that the transformed person may not even name it. A seed planted in a moment of stillness, a phrase overheard in passing, a glance that cuts through the fog of illusion, these are the tools of their alchemy. They do not change the world in a day, but in decades, in lifetimes, in the quiet lineage of those who remember. To meet a master is not to find an answer, but to awaken a question so profound it reshapes the seeker's entire orientation to life. Their wisdom is not in words alone but in the texture of their existence, the way they hold space, the way they listen, the way they move through the world with a gravity that is not heaviness but sacred attention. They are not saviors but mirrors, reflecting back to us the vastness we've forgotten we carry within. And so, they walk among us, not as celebrities of enlightenment, but as living testaments to the truth that the greatest teachers are those who, in their quietness, teach us how to silence the noise within ourselves. Imagine a towering ancient tree standing in the heart of a sprawling forest, its gnarled roots threading through the soil like veins of wisdom, unseen yet vital. These roots, concealed beneath the forest floor, delve deep into the earth, anchoring the tree while absorbing the nutrients and moisture essential to its survival. In doing so, they siphon sustenance not just for themselves, but for the entire ecosystem surrounding them, nourishing the delicate balance of the microorganisms, fungi, and other flora that quietly sustain the forest's life. The roots create a hidden network, a web of connection and interdependence, much like the foundational knowledge and values that a great teacher imparts without seeking recognition. Just as the tree's roots silently fortify the soil, a true teacher's influence permeates the unseen corners of their students' minds, laying the groundwork for growth that will echo for generations. The tree's trunk rises with quiet strength, textured bark weathered by time and seasons, yet unyielding against the storms that rage. Its canopy of branches stretches wide, forming a living umbrella that softens the sun's relentless heat, offering respite to creatures below. This shade is more than a physical shelter. It is a sanctuary where saplings and ferns thrive without the scorching glare of direct exposure, where young animals find refuge, and where the air is cool with the promise of safety. Similarly, a true teacher provides a protective embrace through their presence, a classroom or presence that fosters curiosity and courage, shielding students from the harsh winds of doubt or societal pressures. Their guidance is a steady force, creating an environment where students can unfold organically, unafraid to explore their vulnerabilities and strengths. And the leaves, countless emerald sails trembling in the breeze, execute a silent symphony of transformation. Each one absorbs carbon dioxide, exhaling oxygen into the air like a breath of renewal. This quiet act of oxygenation sustains the very breath of the forest, a reminder that even the smallest, most ordinary actions can ripple into life-saving contributions. Likewise, a teacher's words, though spoken in the hush of a lesson or the stillness of a conversation, often spark the flames of critical thought or compassion in their students. These moments, seemingly unremarkable at the time, become the oxygen for minds yearning to grow, nurturing the clarity to navigate a complex world. Yet the tree simply is. It does not trumpet its role in the ecosystem, nor does it crave accolades for the shade it bestows or the air it purifies. Its existence is not a performance but a purposeful stillness, a testament to the power of being rather than doing. True teachers mirror this integrity. They walk through the world with a quiet intensity, their lives a living curriculum of humility, integrity, and quiet resilience. Their footsteps are a rhythm not of self-promotion, but of steady, grounding presence. While society often glorifies the loud, the visible, the charismatic, these teachers remain in the background, their impact neither flashy nor faddish. Instead, their influence is measured in the slow, deliberate growth of a student's confidence, the quiet transformation of a skeptical mind into a compassionate heart, or the spark of curiosity that ignites a lifelong journey of learning. Their presence subtly reshapes the inner landscapes of those who are ready to receive, not through force or expectation, but through the gentle gravity of example. A teacher's patience becomes a student's patience. Their kindness blooms into the student's empathy. Their courage inspires the student to face their own demons. Like the tree that bends in a storm and rises anew, these educators endure challenges without breaking, modeling resilience for the next generation. Their lessons are not confined to textbooks but are etched into the fabric of their students' lives, a wisdom that transcends time and context. Just as fallen leaves nourish the soil for future growth, the legacy of a true teacher often outlives their physical presence. Their ideas take root in the minds of others, who then become the trees of their own forests, spreading the same quiet wisdom. The world may not always note the name of the original tree, but it breathes easier because of it. So too, the greatest teachers are those whose names may fade from memory, yet whose influence lingers in the values, choices, and courage of those they shaped. They are the quiet architects of humanity's progress, not builders of empires but gardeners of the soul, tending to the seeds of potential they cannot see bloom in full. In a society often enamored with noise and spectacle, the tree and the teacher remind us that the most profound transformations arise not from the loudest voices, but from the still, steady presence that simply is, offering support, sustenance, and a canopy of possibility beneath which life, in all its fragile beauty, can flourish. Their presence is often felt more than seen, a quiet force that operates in the unassuming shadows of human experience, leaving imprints not on the eyes but on the soul. It might arrive as a sudden, almost serendipitous burst of clarity during a moment of chaos, a flicker of insight that cuts through the fog of doubt, like sunlight piercing dense clouds. Perhaps it is a single, gentle phrase, spoken without ornamentation or expectation, yet resonating with a truth so profound it feels custom crafted for the listener's heart. It could be the unexpected gift of serenity in a storm, a calm that does not erase the world's noise but softens its edges, allowing a space where breath returns and perspective regains its balance. These are not grand gestures or moments of spectacle but whispers, subtle yet seismic, that rearrange the inner architecture of the seeker. The ripple of their impact is slow, deliberate, and enduring. Like pebbles cast into the still waters of a life, their influence expands outward, unobserved yet transformative. Years later, a person might trace a shift in their worldview to a forgotten conversation, an unclaimed kindness, or a still moment of connection that once passed unnoticed. The gratitude for such encounters often surfaces in the quiet hours, when the mind has the luxury of reflection, and the heart recognizes the hand that once steadied it during an invisible storm. These unseen guides need not wear robes of wisdom or titles of authority. They are the parent whose silent, steady presence radiates the assurance of, "I am here," even when the child's turmoil demands no answers. They are the stranger on a crowded subway who locks eyes for a beat, their smile a bridge across the loneliness of anonymity. They are teachers who illuminate not through curriculum but through curiosity, a spark passed to curious minds simply because curiosity itself is contagious. They are friends who sit in the silence beside grief, their companionship a balm that requires no words, and colleagues who offer mentorship not as a performance, but as an organic response to another's growth. Yet, their most paradoxical gift is their invisibility to the conditioned eye, a gaze trained to measure impact in tangible acts, accolades, or visibility. Society's radar often overlooks the gentle, the unseen, the unseeking. These individuals do not demand recognition. Their influence is woven into the texture of lives, not the headlines of them. To notice them is to train the soul to see beyond the surface, to honor the sacredness of smallness, and to understand that some of the most profound connections are those that exist in the spaces between. In a world addicted to spectacle, their quiet presence is a revolution of presence itself. The true master does not wear a costume designed to attract attention. Their appearance is unadorned, not because they lack creativity or beauty, but because they understand that external embellishment is a distraction from the essence of their being. They do not don capes, robes, or symbols of authority to mark their presence, no glittering insignias, no theatrical flair. Instead, they inhabit the world as a mirror of ordinary life, blending seamlessly into the tapestry of human existence. They may look like anyone, a grizzled street vendor hawking vegetables, a wide-eyed child playing in the rain, a stooped elder watching the sunset, or a corporate executive commuting silently on a train. To the untrained eye, they are unremarkable. But to those who can perceive beyond the surface, their invisibility is a choice, a refusal to be reduced to a spectacle. They know that true guidance grows in the soil of simplicity and accessibility, not in the limelight of showmanship. They may speak simply, using the language of the heart rather than the jargon of dogma. Their words are not laden with esoteric terms or layered doctrines, yet they carry a weight that lingers. A master's speech is like a gentle rain. It falls without force, yet nourishes the roots of understanding. They do not lecture didactically, but offer parables drawn from the mundane, the rustle of leaves, the stillness of a pond, the way light filters through a dusty window. They meet others where they are, not where they think others should be. Their wisdom is not cloaked in intellectual complexity, it is distilled to its purest form, like water made from snow, the clarity of truth untainted by ego or pretense. When they teach, they do not impose beliefs but invite awakening, allowing listeners to feel the truth in their bones rather than memorize it in their minds. They may move through the world with a natural grace that is not performative, but authentic. There is no calculation in their movements, no self-conscious choreography to evoke awe or reverence. Their presence is like a tree swaying in the wind, unconstrained, rooted yet fluid. They do not walk with the exaggerated purpose of someone who must prove their importance, nor with the hunched humility of someone who denies it. Instead, their gait is light, their gestures unforced, their smiles unguarded. This grace is not an act, it is the byproduct of inner alignment. When one is no longer preoccupied with projecting a particular image, the body naturally reflects the harmony of the soul. Even in stillness, they radiate a quiet magnetism, not because they demand to be noticed, but because they are perfectly, effortlessly themselves. Their power does not emanate from their appearance, their title, or their perceived knowledge. No degree certifies their authority, no certificate validates their worth, no crowd of followers defines their influence. To the world, they may be faceless, nameless, a watercolor melting into the background. Yet this is where their true power lies. A master does not wield power over others but in alignment with the flow of existence. Their strength is not in dominance or persuasion, but in the unshakable stillness of their center. Like the eye of a storm, they remain calm at the core of chaos, their presence a stabilizing force for those who cross their path. They do not accumulate power as one might fill a ledger, they embody it as the sun embodies light, imperceptible yet inescapable. Their power resides in their presence, a presence that carries a certain stillness, a certain depth, a certain alignment with the underlying reality of existence. This presence is not a performance, it is not something they cultivate or conceal. It is the natural overflow of a life lived in congruence with truth, with love, with the boundless now. In their presence, time seems to pause, not because they demand it, but because they are the pause, the breath between thoughts, the infinite space in which all things arise and dissolve. To encounter a master is to be in the field of a silent question. Who are you, beyond the stories you tell about yourself? Their presence does not answer, it invites you to ask. And in that asking, the barriers between self and other, illusion and reality, begin to dissolve. In the end, the true master is not a figurehead but a reflector. They do not point to a destination but reveal the mirror in which you see your own face. They are not a leader in the traditional sense, but a co-participant in the dance of becoming. And in their quiet, unassuming way, they become the most radical of teachers, not by changing the world, but by changing the way we see it, and thus, the way we see ourselves. When they speak, something profound and mysterious stirs within the seeker. It is as if a dormant ember, hidden deep within their being, is gently fanned into a warm and golden glow. This awakening is not merely an intellectual agreement, or a superficial emotional appreciation for a beautiful idea. Rather, it is a deeply felt sense of resonance, a recognition that echoes through every cell of their body, a feeling of knowing that transcends the boundaries of rational thought. It is as if a long-forgotten melody, one that has been silently waiting in the recesses of their mind, suddenly begins to play in the background of their consciousness, reminding the seeker of something deeply familiar yet long neglected. This melody is not just a metaphorical expression, but a real and tangible sensation that awakens a sense of nostalgia, a longing for a state of being that has been forgotten or overlooked. It is a reminder of the seeker's true nature, a nature that is timeless, spaceless, and unbounded. As the melody plays on, it stirs up a sense of wonder, a sense of awe, and a sense of curiosity, prompting the seeker to look deeper within themselves, to explore the uncharted territories of their own heart and mind. This awakening occurs not because the teacher is particularly impressive or skillful in the conventional sense. They may not be eloquent or charismatic, and their words may not be laced with complex philosophical concepts or poetic flourishes. Yet, despite their unassuming demeanor, their words, their presence, or their simple actions serve as a catalyst, reminding the soul of its own inherent nature, the nature of light, of love, of awareness. The teacher's role is not to impart knowledge or to convey information, but to awaken the seeker to their own inner wisdom, to remind them of the depths of their own being, and to guide them on their journey of self-discovery. The teacher's words, in this sense, are not just mere sounds or verbal constructs, but a transmission of energy, a vibration that resonates with the seeker's own essence. They are a reminder that the seeker is not just a separate individual, but an integral part of a larger whole, a droplet of water in the vast ocean of existence. As the teacher speaks, their words become a bridge, connecting the seeker to their own inner world, and to the world around them. They become a doorway, opening onto new perspectives, new insights, and new possibilities, inviting the seeker to step into the unknown, and to embark on a journey of exploration and discovery. In this way, the teacher's presence becomes a mirror, reflecting back to the seeker their own true nature, their own inner light, and their own inherent wisdom. The teacher's role is not to tell the seeker what to think or how to be, but to remind them of who they already are, and to empower them to be that. The awakening that occurs is not a result of the teacher's efforts, but a natural response to the reminder, a spontaneous recognition of the seeker's own true nature, and a deep sense of connection to the world around them. As the seeker awakens to this reality, they begin to see the world in a new light, a light that is filled with wonder, magic, and possibility, and they begin to understand that they are not just a passive observer, but an active participant in the grand drama of existence. Discernment, a term often conflated with judgment, is far more than a critical or harsh evaluation of others. It is frequently misunderstood as a tool for casting aspersions, for pointing fingers at those whose actions, beliefs, or lifestyles deviate from societal or personal expectations. However, this misinterpretation overlooks the true essence of discernment, which is rooted not in condemnation, but in clarity, presence, and a deep, intuitive understanding of the unseen rhythms that shape our experiences. At its core, discernment is an inner compass, a subtle yet potent ability to perceive beyond the surface of people, situations, or teachings and attune to their vibrational quality. This vibrational quality, refers to the energy, intention, or alignment that underlies visible forms. It is akin to listening to a symphony and sensing whether the notes harmonize or clash, whether the melody resonates with authenticity or rings hollow. In this sense, discernment is not a rigid checklist of rules or standards, but a fluid, sensitive process of feeling what is true, what is aligned with one's deepest values and the universal principles of harmony, and what is muddled by ego, distortion, or illusion. To illustrate this, consider the analogy of a musician tuning an instrument. A skilled musician does not judge the strings or keys of another instrument as wrong, but instead listens intently to their current tone, gently adjusting them to align with the desired resonance. Similarly, discernment requires the seeker to approach the world not with preconceived judgments, but with open curiosity and a willingness to feel the underlying frequency of what is being encountered. If a spiritual teacher's words resonate with warmth, authenticity, and a sense of liberation, their teaching might vibrate with truth. Conversely, a charismatic speaker who stirs emotions without depth may emit a discordant frequency, a mask for manipulation or self-serving agendas. Discernment, then, is about tuning into these frequencies, differentiating between the harmonious and the dissonant, the genuine and the performative. This process of discernment is not about isolating oneself or imposing one's own standards on others. Rather, it is a practice of inner alignment. It asks us to cultivate a quiet, centered awareness that allows us to sense whether a person, situation, or idea is in harmony with our own truth and the greater good. For instance, in relationships, discernment might reveal when a connection is mutualistic and uplifting rather than one-sided and draining. In choosing spiritual paths or communities, it invites us to move beyond surface-level appeals, powerful rhetoric, charismatic leaders, or aesthetic packaging, and inquire into the ethical grounding, humility, and lived integrity of the teacher or tradition. Developing discernment is a lifelong journey that requires both practice and patience. It is nurtured through mindfulness, learning to observe without immediate reaction, and through a commitment to self-awareness. When we are still enough to listen rather than react, we begin to notice subtle clues, a sense of lightness or burden in a conversation, a feeling of expansion or restriction in a space, a quiet trust or unease in a person's presence. Over time, this attunement becomes sharper, allowing us to navigate life with a balance of heart and wisdom, neither clinging to dogma nor being swept away by the tide of trends or charisma. In a world saturated with noise, distractions, and conflicting messages, discernment is not a luxury but a necessity. It is the art of seeing clearly while remaining kind, of trusting the quiet inner knowing that distinguishes genuine connection from illusion. Ultimately, it is not about superiority or exclusion but about aligning with the authentic flow of life, surrendering to truth, wherever and however it reveals itself. This profound clarity, which originates from within, is not a sudden flash of insight but a gentle, steady illumination that arises from the quiet depths of the soul. It is less a product of logic and more an intuitive recognition, a sensing that transcends the clamor of the critical mind. Unlike the mind, which dissects us, questions, and judges, the heart's knowing is soft, unwavering, and unburdened by the need for validation. It arrives in moments of stillness, when the cacophony of external demands, internal doubts, and societal conditioning momentarily recedes. In this space of silence, there is a subtle shift. The spirit senses alignment with something true, not because of its brilliance or intricacy, but because of its warmth, a truth that feels like a hand cradling your own, steady and familiar. This truth is not a dazzling spectacle but a quiet presence, much like the steady glow of a lantern on a dark path. It does not shout or complicate, Instead, it exudes authenticity, a resonance that soothes the fragmented noise within. When a teaching, a person, or an experience aligns with this inner truth, it evokes an immediate sense of home. Imagine walking through a storm of uncertainty, battered by winds of confusion, and then stepping into a shelter where every corner feels familiar. The walls are adorned with memories of your own longing, and the air hums with a frequency that matches your heartbeat. This is the relief of recognition, the realization that what you've been searching for has been within you all along, waiting to be acknowledged. The feeling is unmistakable, a visceral sense that this is the path, not because it is perfect or promising, but because it fits. It is not a decision made with the head but a surrender of the heart. When a teacher, a verse, or even a stranger's gesture carries this resonance, it strikes a chord, the soul recognizes its own reflection. It is like hearing a melody you've forgotten you knew, or seeing a star in the sky that has always been there, only now you can finally name it. This is the soul's yearning met, a deep, unspoken desire for connection, meaning, and wholeness. In these moments, the barriers between self and other dissolve. The echo of another's words or presence becomes your own voice returning, reminding you of your inherent knowing. It is not about submission to authority or external validation, but about the soul's silent dialogue with itself, affirmed through the mirror of another's authenticity. And in that echo, you are not just heard, you are remembered, as if the universe gently whispers, "Yes, this is who you are." In today's era, a significant number of spiritual seekers are irresistibly drawn to individuals who possess captivating personalities, magnetic charisma, and a flair for the dramatic. The modern age has given rise to a plethora of self-proclaimed gurus and social media influencers who embody these qualities in abundance, effortlessly commanding attention and admiration from their followers. These charismatic figures often promise their devotees the prospect of instant transformation, touting their ability to facilitate profound spiritual awakenings, heal deep-seated emotional wounds, and impart ancient wisdom in a remarkably short span of time. Their methods often involve dazzling displays of power, which may be real or perceived, leaving their audience in awe and wonder. These spectacular demonstrations can take many forms, including but not limited to mesmerizing performances, seemingly miraculous healings, or profound philosophical discourses that appear to hold the secrets of the universe. The promise of quick fixes for complex inner work is a particularly alluring aspect of these gurus and influencers' offerings, as it caters to the seeker's deep-seated desire for rapid spiritual progress and effortless self-actualization. Furthermore, these charismatic individuals create environments that are conducive to excitement and adoration, expertly manipulating the emotional atmosphere to foster an intense sense of community and shared purpose among their followers. This has the effect of catering to the seeker's inherent desire for external validation, as they often crave recognition and acceptance from others to bolster their own sense of self-worth. The fear of missing out, FOMO, also plays a significant role in this dynamic, as seekers are often anxious to stay abreast of the latest spiritual trends, techniques, and teachings, lest they be left behind or fail to attain the promised enlightenment. As a result, the typical seeker is often enamored with the spectacle, the grand narrative, and the story that is easy to believe and follow. They seek out experiences that are visually stunning, emotionally charged, and intellectually stimulating, often prioritizing these external factors over the more subtle and introspective aspects of spiritual growth. The idea of being healed in a single session, transformed overnight, or awakened to a higher state of consciousness through a simple yet profound revelation is incredibly alluring, as it promises a swift and effortless resolution to the complexities and challenges of the spiritual journey. This predilection for the spectacular and the dramatic can lead seekers to focus on the outward trappings of spirituality, such as elaborate rituals, esoteric symbolism, and charismatic leadership, rather than cultivating the inner qualities of discipline, patience, and self-awareness that are essential for genuine spiritual growth. Consequently, the seeker may find themselves perpetually chasing the next spiritual high, the next charismatic guru, or the next revolutionary teaching, without ever stopping to examine their own motivations, intentions, and values. By doing so, they may inadvertently create a never-ending cycle of seeking, forever pursuing the external validation and the fleeting sense of excitement that these charismatic figures and spectacular experiences provide, rather than embarking on the more profound and enduring journey of self-discovery and inner transformation. Genuine awakening is a profound metamorphosis of the soul, yet it cannot be likened to a theatrical spectacle or a spectator sport. It is not a grand performance where a self-proclaimed master parades their enlightenment to an awestruck audience, offering certificates of spiritual superiority or scripted wisdom. Instead, it is a deeply intimate journey, a quiet revolution that unfolds in the sanctum of one's own being. To misunderstand it as a public display is akin to confusing the art of pottery with a concert. One is a craft honed in solitude, the other a performance for others. Awakening is not about curating an image of transcendence for the world to admire. It is about confronting the raw, unfiltered landscape of one's own existence, peeling away the layers of conditioned thought, societal expectations, and emotional armor that obscure our true nature. At its core, this path is an inward unraveling. Unwinding is the gentle dismantling of the narrative we've built about ourselves, the identities, beliefs, and roles that society has taught us to adopt from infancy. It is like detangling a knot that has been pulled tight over decades, requiring patience and courage to trace the threads of fear, comparison, and self-judgment back to their origins. Unlearning follows, a radical shedding of the illusions that once felt like truths. The notion that happiness depends on external validation, the belief that success equates to fulfillment, or the idea that our worth is tethered to productivity. This phase often involves discomfort, as it challenges the very framework through which we've interpreted reality. And finally, realigning, a process of rediscovering what resonates with the core of our being. It is like a compass needle trembling toward true north, recalibrating to the silent call of authenticity rather than the noise of societal expectations. Crucially, awakening is not bestowed as a gift by another, nor is it a trophy to be earned. It does not arrive in the form of sacred scrolls, chants, or mystical experiences handed down from a spiritual elite. Rather, it is kindled from within, like a flame that flickers to life when the right conditions converge, conditions created not by an external teacher, but by the seeker's willingness to sit in stillness, ask unflinching questions, and embrace the vulnerability of not knowing. A guide in this journey might serve as a kind of spiritual midwife, assisting the birth of understanding without claiming ownership over the process. Their role is not to transfer knowledge across the void between two minds, but to embody the state they describe. Imagine a gardener who tends the soil, yet does not grow your plants for you. Through their presence, marked by humility, transparency, and a life lived in harmony with their words, the seeker begins to perceive the subtle rhythms of their own consciousness. A teacher might share a story, a gesture, or a piercing silence that jolts the student into self-inquiry, but the actual transformation belongs to the soil of their inner world. Consider the metaphor of a river. A master is not the water itself, but a bridge built by someone who has crossed the current. They may show you the path, yet your journey will be distinct, shaped by your own twists and turns, your own rapids and eddies. Awakening is not about replicating another's enlightenment, but recognizing the innate clarity that always existed within you, obscured only by the silt of distraction and self-negation. It is the realization that you were never separate from this light, you had merely forgotten to look upward. In this sense, the authentic guide is not a sage dispensing answers but a mirror held up to the soul. Their wisdom does not reside in the eloquence of their words, but in the radical honesty of their being, how they confront pain without pretense, how they embrace joy without excess, and how they walk through life with porous boundaries, allowing the world to pass through them unfiltered. The seeker, through prolonged exposure to this living example, begins to disidentify from the mental chatter and glimpse the stillness beneath. It is not a lesson taught, but a truth remembered, a recognition that cannot be spoken, only lived. Ultimately, the path to awakening dissolves the illusion of separation between teacher and student, between the self and the infinite. It is a return to the original, unmodified version of your essence, a reawakening to the truth that you are not a seeker of awakening, but the awakened being all along. The process is not linear but cyclical, not a summit to reach but a home to inhabit. And while the steps of unwinding, unlearning, and realigning may require guidance and courage, the final arrival is always your own, a sunrise that no one can witness for you, yet shines because you opened your own eyes. The true teacher, a journey of humility, presence, and inner discovery. The true teacher, in the deepest sense, is not one who offers expedients, quick fixes, or warranties of spiritual success. They reject the alluring promise of shortcuts, those tempting formulas, rituals, or steps that claim to bypass the arduous, often messy process of authentic growth. Instead, they recognize that the path to awakening is not a universal roadmap but a deeply personal odyssey, shaped by the seeker's own struggles, revelations, and vulnerabilities. For every individual, this journey unfolds in distinct rhythms. Some may stumble through years of self-doubt before finding clarity, while others achieve breakthroughs in the solitude of a single moment. The true teacher does not prescribe one-size-fits-all solutions. They honor the uniqueness of each learner's terrain, understanding that growth cannot be rushed, packaged, or commodified. Central to this approach is the acknowledgement that awakening demands inner work, a willingness to confront the self in its entirety. This includes not only the pursuit of light, wisdom, and transcendence but also the courage to face the shadows of fear, shame, and unresolved pain. A true teacher does not shield their students from these darker realms. Instead, they guide them to meet their own shadows with compassion, recognizing that transformation is impossible without integration. They do not flatter the ego, that instinctive part of the mind that craves to be extraordinary, chosen, or superior. By resisting the urge to feed self-importance, the teacher gently dissects the ego's cravings for validation through external markers, titles, accolades, or spiritual credentials. They may challenge the seeker's reliance on dogma, rituals, or systems that promise security through structure, urging instead a turn inward to question assumptions and trust one's innate wisdom. Importantly, the true teacher does not sell enlightenment as a product or a destination to be purchased. They resist the cultural urge to monetize spirituality, or frame awakening as a trophy to be won. Enlightenment, in their view, is not a static state to be acquired but a dynamic process of becoming. Their role is not to dictate the entire journey but to offer guidance with the sensitivity of a skilled navigator. Like a lighthouse in a storm, they illuminate the path without forcing the ship to follow their course. They step back at times, allowing the student to navigate their own terrain, intervening only when a gentle course correction is needed. Their authority does not stem from dominance but from deep listening and wisdom honed through their own journey. The influence of the true teacher is subtle, woven into the fabric of presence rather than power. It is akin to the wind's quiet persuasion, coaxing a leaf to turn not through coercion but through the gentle alignment of its own nature with the flow of the breeze. They do not command or manipulate. Their authority springs from authenticity. In a world obsessed with spectacle, grand speeches, dramatic rituals, or charismatic declarations, they offer the quiet power of silence. In this silence, they understand, lies the space for true understanding to arise, unfiltered by noise or expectation. They recognize that the mind, perpetually active in its need to analyze, often obscures the heart's quiet knowing. Thus, they prioritize practices like meditation, stillness, and mindful presence, creating an environment where the student can experience the stillness that nurtures insight. A true teacher's silence is not empty but alive with meaning. It is a silence that says, "I trust you to hear within." They may spend more time sitting in meditation, in nature, or simply being, than in offering words. For them, their presence itself, calm, grounded, and aligned with truth, becomes a living testament to the principles they uphold. Students are not taught through their teacher's words alone but through the quiet resonance of a life lived with purpose and integrity. In this way, the teacher's influence transcends verbal instruction, shaping the student's understanding not by what is said, but by how deeply the teacher embodies the wisdom they seek to share. Ultimately, the true teacher is a gardener of souls, knowing that growth follows its own seasons. They do not claim mastery but act as a steward of possibility, tending to the soil of the seeker's spirit with patience, humility, and a profound respect for the sacred mystery of becoming. In their silence, their courage, and their unwavering presence, they remind us that the greatest teachings are often found not in answers, but in the readiness to ask the right questions. The unseen questions, unveiling the mysteries of spiritual enlightenment. One question that often arises in the mind of the seeker, an individual embarked on a journey of spiritual exploration and self-discovery, is a profound and complex one. Why do the masters, these seemingly enlightened beings, not fix the world? Why do they not use their perceived power and wisdom to end suffering, injustice, war, and disease, bringing about an era of peace, harmony, and enlightenment to all of humanity? This inquiry stems from a deep-seated desire for external change, a belief that the ultimate goal of enlightenment is to wield power and influence to reshape the external reality, to alter the world according to one's vision of perfection. At its core, this question reflects a fundamental misunderstanding of the nature of enlightenment and the role of the masters. It assumes that these spiritual beings possess a kind of omnipotence, a capability to manipulate the world and its events to suit their will. It also presumes that their primary concern is to alter the external world, to fix its problems, and to eradicate its imperfections. However, this perspective overlooks the essence of spiritual enlightenment, which is not about exercising power over the external world, but rather about transcending the limitations and conditioning of the individual self. Enlightenment is a state of consciousness characterized by a profound understanding of the nature of reality, a deep insight into the interconnectedness of all things, and a sense of unity with the universe. It is a state of being that transcends the dualities of the material world, such as good and evil, right and wrong, and us and them. The masters, having attained this state, are not motivated by a desire to change the world, but rather to embody and express the wisdom, compassion, and love that arises from their enlightened consciousness. Their role is not to fix the world, but to guide and support those who seek enlightenment, to offer a reflection of the possibility of transcendence, and to provide a catalyst for the seeker's own journey of self-discovery. The masters understand that the world is a complex and multifaceted entity, shaped by the collective actions, choices, and intentions of its inhabitants. They recognize that true transformation can only occur from within, through the individual's own efforts to cultivate awareness, wisdom, and compassion. Furthermore, the masters are aware that the problems of the world, such as suffering, injustice, war, and disease, are not external phenomena that can be eradicated through external means. Rather, they are symptoms of a deeper disconnection from our true nature, a manifestation of the ignorance, fear, and separation that pervade the human condition. The masters know that the only way to truly address these issues is to confront and transcend the root causes, which lie within the individual and collective psyche. In this sense, the question of why the masters do not fix the world is a reflection of our own limited understanding and our tendency to seek external solutions to internal problems. It is an invitation to look deeper, to explore the nature of reality, and to discover the wisdom and power that lies within. The masters, through their presence and teachings, offer a mirror to our own potential, a reminder that the true transformation we seek is not something that can be imposed from without, but rather something that must be cultivated from within. As we embark on this journey of self-discovery and spiritual growth, we may come to realize that the question of why the masters do not fix the world is, in fact, a question that holds the key to our own liberation and enlightenment. The answer, while seemingly simple, carries profound depth that invites us to reconsider our fundamental understanding of the world and our place within it. At first glance, the notion that the true master does not endeavor to fix the world may appear counterintuitive, especially given the myriad challenges and injustices that we face. However, this perspective is rooted in a profound insight: the world, in its essence, is not broken. It is evolving, learning, and unfolding in a complex and multifaceted manner that is both beautiful and challenging. The human experience, with all its attendant suffering, joy, and strife, is an integral part of the grand tapestry of existence. It is a necessary component of the journey of consciousness, which is the underlying fabric that weaves together the intricate web of life. Suffering, in particular, plays a crucial role in this journey, for it is through our struggles and challenges that we learn, grow, and evolve. The difficulties we face serve as catalysts for our spiritual evolution, prompting us to seek answers, to question our assumptions, and to delve deeper into the mysteries of existence. To interfere with the natural unfolding of the world, to attempt to eliminate suffering entirely, would be to interfere with the law of karma, which operates on many levels and governs the intricate dance of cause and effect. Karma is not simply a matter of individual actions and their consequences. It is a complex web of energies that connects us all, influencing the trajectory of our lives and the world around us. The Master understands this delicate balance and recognizes that every action, every decision, and every event is intertwined with the larger cosmic landscape. The Master's refusal to fix the world is not a sign of indifference or apathy. Rather, it is a testament to their deep understanding of the intricate dance of cause and effect. They recognize that the lessons we learn through our experiences, including those that involve suffering, are essential to our growth and evolution. By allowing the natural unfolding of events to occur, the Master enables individuals and the collective to learn and evolve in a manner that is authentic and meaningful. In this sense, the Master's role is not to impose their will upon the world or to attempt to control the trajectory of events. Rather, their role is to guide, to support, and to facilitate the natural unfolding of the human experience. They offer wisdom, compassion, and insight to those who seek it, empowering individuals to navigate the challenges of life with greater ease, awareness, and understanding. By doing so, the Master honors the inherent wisdom and resilience of the human spirit, trusting in our capacity to learn, grow, and evolve in a manner that is unique to each individual. Ultimately, the Master's profound understanding of the world and its workings invites us to adopt a new perspective, one that is rooted in a deep appreciation for the complexity and beauty of existence. By recognizing that the world is not broken, but rather evolving and learning, we can begin to see our place within it in a new light. We can learn to approach challenges with greater wisdom, compassion, and understanding, trusting in the natural unfolding of events and the inherent wisdom of the human experience. In doing so, we may come to realize that the true master is not one who seeks to fix the world, but rather one who embodies the wisdom, compassion, and understanding that allows us to navigate the complexities of life with greater ease, grace, and awareness. Furthermore, the Master does not rescue, for they understand that true freedom and strength can only emerge from within an individual who has navigated their own challenges and learned their own lessons. This profound realization is rooted in the understanding that the journey of self-discovery and growth is not something that can be shortcut or bypassed. To rescue someone from their suffering, no matter how well-intentioned the act may be, is ultimately to rob them of their most significant opportunities for growth, their potential for awakening, and the development of their inner strength. The Master's role is not that of a savior who carries the burden of another's journey, but rather that of a guide who reveals the path and points towards the possibility of transformation. They illuminate the way, providing the seeker with the tools, wisdom, and encouragement needed to embark on their journey of self-discovery. However, they do not carry the seeker across the river of challenges and uncertainties. Instead, they stand on the riverbank, offering guidance and support, but ultimately, the swim must be undertaken by the individual themselves. This approach may seem counterintuitive in a world where rescuing and fixing others is often seen as a sign of love, care, and compassion. However, the Master's wisdom lies in understanding that true compassion is not about saving others from their struggles, but about empowering them to find their own strength and resilience. By not rescuing, the Master allows the individual to confront their fears, to learn from their mistakes, and to develop the wisdom and character that can only be forged in the fire of their own experiences. The Master's refusal to rescue is not a sign of indifference or lack of empathy, but rather a deep understanding of the human condition and the nature of spiritual growth. They recognize that the journey of awakening is not a destination, but a process that requires effort, dedication, and courage. By pointing the way and providing guidance, the Master encourages the seeker to take ownership of their journey, to trust in their own abilities, and to have faith in the unfolding of their path. Ultimately, the Master's approach is rooted in a profound respect for the individual's autonomy and potential. They understand that each person has within them the capacity for awakening, for growth, and for transformation. By not rescuing, the Master honors this capacity, allowing the individual to unfold into their full potential, to discover their own strength, and to find their own way across the river of life. The swim, though challenging and uncertain, is a necessary part of the journey, for it is in the act of swimming that one discovers their own buoyancy, their own resilience, and their own inner wisdom. The Master does not intervene to free the seeker from their struggles. Rather, they illuminate the hidden threads that weave through existence, guiding the seeker not with answers, but with the light of revelation. Their role is not to lift burdens but to hold up a mirror to the soul, reflecting the profound truths that lie dormant within each consciousness. Through their wisdom, the Master unravels the veil of ignorance, exposing the raw, unfiltered essence of reality itself, a reality where distinctions blur, and the boundaries we cling to dissolve into the seamless fabric of being. They reveal the nature of reality as a dynamic interplay of form and emptiness, a dance of impermanence and interdependence. They show that the self is not a fixed entity, but a fluid, ever-evolving current of awareness, neither confined to the body nor owned by the ego. In this revelation, the seeker begins to perceive the illusory separation between self and other, recognizing that all things, mountains, stars, breath, and thought, are interconnected, vibrating in harmony within the same universal field of energy and consciousness. The Master also unveils the latent potential for awakening that inhabits every being. This is not a gift bestowed by the Master, but a truth that has always been present, waiting for the seeker to awaken to it. Like a seed buried beneath the soil, the capacity for enlightenment lies dormant until nurtured by self-inquiry and insight. The Master's role is not to plant the seed, but to pour light onto it, coaxing it to unfurl through questions, parables, or direct presence, pointing not to a destination, but to the very ground of awareness from which all seeking arises. This inner turn is radical and often unsettling. The Master points the finger not outward to the world's chaos or the seeker's external problems, but inward, to the silent witness behind the storm of thoughts, the still point in the eye of the hurricane. They dismantle the dream of duality, the myth that we are isolated fragments in a vast, indifferent universe. Here, the illusion of separation, the belief that we are separate from others, from nature, from the divine, is exposed as a mirage, a projection of a mind conditioned to divide. In its place, the seeker glimpses the truth, that to be is to be in communion, that every breath is a note in the symphony of all life, and that love, when unclouded by fear, is the recognition of our shared essence. By unveiling this reality, the Master does not liberate the seeker from suffering. They equip them with the tools to see through the cages of their own making. They teach that the chains that bind are not forged by external forces, but by the mind's attachment to illusions of control, identity, and control. When the seeker turns inward, they discover a wellspring of strength that transcends the ego, a resilience rooted in the understanding that they are not the story they tell themselves, but the awareness that observes the story. Ultimately, the Master's greatest gift is not knowledge, but clarity. They do not lead the seeker down a predetermined path, but ignite the seeker's own inner compass, allowing it to point toward a journey uniquely theirs, one of self-discovery, awakening, and a life lived in alignment with the boundless unity that underlies all separation. In this way, the Master reveals not to save, but to set free, not to speak for truth, but to silence the mind's noise so the truth may speak for itself. Here's an expanded and enriched version of your passage, elaborated with additional context, emotional resonance, and layered meaning. This transformation demands a profound, almost revolutionary shift in perspective, one that dismantles the familiar scaffolding of assumptions and rewires the way one perceives reality. It is not a surface-level adjustment but a core reorientation, where the seeker must confront the unspoken narratives that have shaped their identity, values, and sense of self. At the heart of this shift lies the necessity to embrace solitude, not as isolation, but as an alchemical space for self-discovery. In this solitude, the seeker learns to shed the weight of external validation, stepping into the uncharted territory of their own truth. While the world around them may be in turmoil, marked by societal pressures, conflicting ideologies, or the noise of others' expectations, the seeker is called to anchor themselves in an inner compass, one that hums with the quiet certainty of intuition rather than the cacophony of doubt. This journey requires a radical act of courage, to listen deeply, not merely with the ears, but with the entire being. It is a listening that transcends words, inviting the seeker to attune to the subtle frequencies of their inner world. Here, wisdom emerges not from external authority but from the wellspring of lived experience, the silent knowing that surfaces in moments of stillness. This wisdom is often buried beneath layers of conditioning, fear, or cultural conditioning, and unearthing it demands patience, vulnerability, and a willingness to sit with discomfort. The seeker must also cultivate the audacity to question everything, to dismantle the scaffolding of truths they've inherited. This includes interrogating long-held beliefs, even those cherished as sacred, and examining the architecture of their own thoughts, emotions, and reactions. Are these patterns born of authenticity or shaped by fear, comparison, or societal scripting? This process is not about denial or rejection of the past but about reclaiming agency over one's inner landscape. It is an ongoing inquiry into the nature of the self, where every thought is a riddle to be unraveled and every emotion a message to be decoded. Equally vital is the discernment to distinguish between external influences that nourish and those that erode. The world is rife with voices offering guidance, some from genuine wisdom, others from control, fear, or insecurity. The seeker must learn to sense the qualitative difference. An expansive influence resonates with openness, possibility, and alignment, while a contracting one tightens the chest, clouds the mind, or demands surrender of one's agency. This discernment is not intellectual but felt deeply in the body and spirit, a visceral knowing that separates genuine liberation from manipulation. Ultimately, this path is an act of radical self-trust, a willingness to walk into the unknown, armed not with certainty but with curiosity. It is a lifelong marriage of introspection and action, where every step is both a question and an answer, and the destination is not a fixed point but the unfolding of one's most authentic self. In this alchemy of becoming, the seeker discovers that the greatest wisdom was never outside to be found, but within to be remembered. This version deepens the original ideas by weaving in metaphors of alchemy, solitude, and journeying, while emphasizing emotional and sensory details to evoke a sense of both struggle and transcendence. It also highlights the process of transformation, not just the destination. The true path of discernment is a profound and transformative journey that asks the seeker to embark on a deep exploration of the self, with the ultimate goal of distinguishing between illusion and essence. This path requires a high degree of self-awareness, introspection, and intuition, as one must learn to navigate the complex and often subtle realms of the human experience. To begin this journey, the seeker must develop the ability to feel the vibration of truth, which is always characterized by its luminous, warm, and expansive qualities. This vibration is not just an intellectual concept, but a palpable, visceral sensation that can be felt in the depths of one's being. As one learns to tune into the vibration of truth, they will notice that it often challenges the ego, pushing against the boundaries of their limited perceptions and conditioned beliefs. This can be a difficult and humbling experience, as the ego is forced to confront its own limitations and biases. However, it is precisely this process of challenge and surrender that allows the seeker to transcend the constraints of the ego and access higher states of consciousness. In contrast, the vibration of illusion is often based on fear, separation, control, and the desire for external validation. This vibration can be seductive and persuasive, using clever manipulations and deceptions to lure the seeker away from the path of truth. Illusion can take many forms, from the negative self-talk and self-doubt that plagues the mind, to the external influences of societal expectations and cultural conditioning. It can also manifest as addictions, obsessions, and other destructive patterns of behavior that serve to distract and disconnect the individual from their true nature. One of the key characteristics of truth is that it does not demand or force itself upon the individual. Instead, it invites and reveals, gently guiding the seeker towards a deeper understanding of themselves and the world around them. Truth is not a rigid or dogmatic concept, but a living, breathing, and dynamic force that adapts to the unique needs and circumstances of each individual. It does not manipulate or coerce, but rather sets free, liberating the seeker from the constraints of their own limited perceptions and conditioning. As the seeker continues on the path of discernment, they will come to realize that truth is not something that can be imposed or acquired from outside, but rather it is a natural and inherent aspect of their own being. It is a spark of divine consciousness that resides within, waiting to be fanned into a flame of awareness and understanding. By learning to feel the vibration of truth, and to distinguish it from the vibration of illusion, the seeker can embark on a journey of profound transformation and growth, one that will ultimately lead them to the realization of their true nature and the fulfillment of their highest potential. The sacredness of hiddenness. There is a profound and often misunderstood wisdom in the way the true masters, the authentic guides who walk the path between the material and the divine, often remain veiled from the world. Their hiddenness is not a concealment born of fear, a reluctance to share, or a desire for anonymity alone. Rather, it is an intentional, sacred choice rooted in the deepest understanding of what it means to guide another soul toward its own awakening. This hiddenness is a quiet, unspoken truth, that the essence of spiritual teaching lies not in dominance, recognition, or the accumulation of followers, but in the delicate art of surrendering to the sacredness of the journey itself. The masters do not stand atop pedestals, barking proclamations or hoarding secrets. Instead, they walk among us like shadows under the sun, their presence felt more in the spaces between words, in the stillness of a moment, or in the inexplicable shift that occurs when one's heart opens. Their teachings are not carved into stone tablets but etched into the fabric of existence, revealed through the rustle of leaves, the echo of laughter, or the slow dissolving of a thought that no longer serves. To remain hidden is, paradoxically, a form of boundless generosity. It is an acknowledgement that the soul's evolution cannot be rushed, that truth is not a commodity to be bought or sold, but a living flame that must be kindled within each individual. This sacred hiddenness arises from an intimate understanding of the soul's nature. Every being is a unique, infinite constellation of light, and the path to self-realization cannot be replicated like a blueprint. A teacher who reveals too much, too soon, too loudly, risks extinguishing the student's own inner spark by drowning it in the brightness of external guidance. The true master, by stepping back into the shadows, invites the seeker to step forward into their own radiance. Hiddenness becomes a mirror. When the teacher retreats from the spotlight, the student is left with no choice but to turn inward, to listen to the wisdom that has always resided within. Moreover, the hiddenness of the masters is a radical act of freedom. In a world that so often equates visibility with authority, their refusal to play the game of fame and acclaim is a quiet rebellion against the illusion that enlightenment can be packaged, sold, or commodified. They do not seek to be found, they exist in the places where the soul already knows how to search, beyond the ego's hunger for answers, beyond the mind's need for certainty. Their presence is felt not in grand gestures but in the subtle alignment of the seeker's inner compass, the quiet nudge toward a question, a path, or a silence that whispers, "You already have what you seek." To recognize the sacredness of hiddenness is to understand that the greatest teachers are not always the loudest voices or the most visible figures. Sometimes, they are the hum in the quiet, the echo without a source, the fire that burns behind the curtains so that the world can gaze into the flame without being blinded. Their hiddenness is not an absence but a presence so profound it transcends form. A reminder that the most sacred truths are not meant to be owned, but experienced. And in that experience, the seeker discovers that the hiddenness is not a barrier, but a bridge, a path leading not to another, but to the self. They are not concealed from the world, nor do they retreat from the gaze of seekers. They remain present, accessible in the quiet spaces between breath and thought, in the unspoken moments of connection and intuition. Their waiting is not passive, but deliberate, a pause filled with invitation, a silent resonance awaiting a reply from those who are truly attuned. They do not chase the curious or the restless. Instead, they hold space for those whose hearts are not yet burdened by cynicism or distraction. The readiness they await is not about accumulating answers or mastering esoteric wisdom. It is not a certificate of spiritual IQ, but a raw, unpolished state of being, a life unlived in the shadow of conditioned expectations. This readiness begins in the heart, not as an organ of biology, but as the seat of compassion and vulnerability. A heart that is pure is not one devoid of flaws or pain, but one that has learned to let go of its need to control, to judge, or to hoard love. Its openness is not a shield lowered in defeat, but a doorway flung wide in trust. It is the heart that can hold both joy and sorrow without collapsing, that sees others not as problems to solve but as siblings in the shared dance of existence. And its willingness to receive is not greed, but gratitude, a recognition that wholeness flows freely when one stops clutching at fragments and begins to breathe. The mind, too, must shed its armor. Readiness here is not about erasing doubt, but about surrendering the desperation to know everything. A sincere mind is humble, asking not, "What must I believe?" but, "What is true here?" It is willing to kneel before paradox, to dwell in the questions rather than rushing to fill them with answers. It questions not to resist, but to refine, to strip away the layers of inherited narratives, societal scripts, and egoic stories that have masqueraded as truth. This unlearning is not destruction, but liberation, a river that stops damming itself upstream to flow freely toward its source. And then there is the soul, the quiet compass within, which hums with a frequency beyond words. Its readiness is not a destination, but a longing, a hunger that no fleeting pleasure can satisfy, no success can satiate. This longing is not for answers in the sky, but for union in the now. It is the soul's echo of itself, a whisper that says, "I am and I am not yet." It is the ache to remember who you are beneath the roles and titles, to touch the infinite while walking the finite. When the soul longs, it is not for a prize, but for homecoming, for a recognition that what you seek is not outside you, but the very breath you've forgotten to breathe. Together, these three, heart, mind, soul, create a vessel strong enough to hold the light and the dark, the unknown and the known. Readiness is not a box to check, but a becoming. It is the alchemy of softness and courage, of silence and action. And when that vessel is prepared, the waiting ends, not because the seekers have changed the world, but because the world has changed them. The ones who waited are no longer distant, they are revealed in the mirror of the ready soul, and the seeking becomes a return, not to something lost, but to something always present. The true seeker, driven by an insatiable desire for self-discovery and growth, does not seek a teacher who will simply provide them with answers or try to complete them. They do not look for someone who will offer a quick fix or a magical solution to all their problems. Instead, they seek a mirror, a reflective surface that will help them see themselves in a new and profound way. This mirror is not a physical one, but rather a metaphorical representation of a guide who can assist them in gaining a deeper understanding of themselves. The true seeker recognizes that they have been conditioned by their upbringing, culture, and experiences to perceive the world in a certain way. They understand that they wear masks to hide their true selves, to conform to societal expectations, and to protect themselves from the vulnerability of being seen. They also acknowledge that they tell themselves stories of who they are, what they are capable of, and what they deserve. These stories, although often unconscious, can be limiting and prevent them from reaching their full potential. The true seeker seeks a guide who can help them see beyond these layers of conditioning, masks, and stories. They look for someone who can gently and lovingly point out the areas where they are stuck, where they are hiding, and where they are limiting themselves. This guide is not a guru who claims to have all the answers, but rather a facilitator who can help the seeker uncover their own inner wisdom. The presence of this guide is not about providing answers or solutions, but about reflecting the seeker's highest potential. It is about holding up a mirror that shows the seeker what they are capable of, what they are made of, and what they can become. This mirror reflects the seeker's deepest desires, their greatest strengths, and their most profound wisdom. It awakens the slumbering awareness within, stirring the seeker's inner knowing and encouraging them to trust their own inner guidance. As the seeker gazes into this mirror, they begin to see themselves in a new light. They start to recognize the patterns and habits that have been holding them back, and they begin to let go of the masks and stories that no longer serve them. They start to awaken to their true nature, to their deepest passions and desires, and to their highest potential. The guide, as a mirror, is not someone who tries to change or fix the seeker, but rather someone who helps them see themselves as they truly are: perfect, whole, and complete. In this sense, the true seeker's journey is not about finding a teacher who can give them answers, but about finding a mirror that can reflect their own inner truth. It is a journey of self-discovery, of awakening, and of embracing one's true nature. The guide, as a mirror, is simply a catalyst for this journey, a presence that helps the seeker uncover their own inner wisdom and remember who they truly are. The age-old adage, "When the seeker is truly ready, the master appears," holds a profound truth that has been echoed throughout the corridors of spiritual history. This phrase is not merely a cliché, but a testament to the universal law that governs the seeker-master dynamic. It suggests that the seeker's journey is not just about finding an external guide, but about preparing oneself for the revelation of inner truth. The appearance of the master is not just a physical encounter, but a metaphysical event that marks a significant shift in the seeker's consciousness. The master's appearance is not necessarily a dramatic, supernatural event, replete with fanfare and spectacle. Although such extraordinary encounters can and do happen, they are not the norm. More often, the master appears as a subtle yet profound shift within the seeker's perception. It is as if the seeker's inner landscape has been rearranged, allowing them to see the world and themselves in a new light. This shift is often accompanied by a sense of profound clarity, as if the fog of confusion has lifted, and the seeker can finally see the path ahead. The master's presence can also be felt as a deep sense of resonance with a particular teaching or a certain way of being. It is as if the seeker has stumbled upon a long-lost friend, a kindred spirit that speaks directly to their soul. This resonance is not just an intellectual understanding, but a visceral feeling that awakens the seeker's heart and mind. It is a sense of coming home, of finally finding the missing piece that makes sense of their journey. In many cases, the master's appearance is not even a physical presence, but a symbolic representation of the seeker's own inner wisdom. The master can be a book, a poem, a work of art, or even a chance encounter with a stranger. The key is not the external form, but the impact it has on the seeker's inner world. The master's role is not to provide answers, but to awaken the seeker to the fact that the answers have always been within. The teacher is simply a catalyst, a spark that ignites the fire of self-discovery, illuminating the path that the seeker has been on all along. The sudden realization that the answer has always been within is a moment of profound awakening. It is a moment of liberation, as the seeker is freed from the need for external validation and guidance. The Master's appearance is not just a meeting of two individuals, but a merging of the seeker's inner and outer worlds. It is a reminder that the true teacher is not someone outside, but the wise and compassionate guide that resides within. This realization is not just an intellectual understanding, but a lived experience that transforms the seeker's life, allowing them to embark on a journey of self-discovery, growth, and transformation. In the end, the appearance of the Master is not just an event, but a process. It is a journey of preparation, of purification, and of surrender. The seeker must be willing to let go of their preconceptions, their ego, and their need for control. They must be willing to embrace the unknown, to trust in the universe, and to have faith in their own inner wisdom. When the seeker is truly ready, the Master appears, not just as a physical presence, but as a symbol of the seeker's own inner mastery. The Master's appearance is a reminder that the true quest is not to find an external guide, but to discover the guide that resides within, waiting to be awakened, waiting to be heard. The Master does not emerge from the shadows of spiritual lore as a redemptive hero or a supernatural deliverer to sweep the seeker off their feet, absolve them of their burdens, or bestow upon them the treasures of their deepest longings. Unlike the archetypal savior who might rescue humanity from sin, ignorance, or suffering, the Master serves a far subtler and profounder role. They are a catalyst for self-discovery, a living testament to the boundless potential of the soul. Rather than offering external salvation, they act as a mirror held up to the seeker, reflecting a truth long buried beneath layers of doubt, fear, and separation, that the seeker is not a fragmented being in need of fixing, but a luminous spark of an infinitely interconnected whole, a soul already complete in its essence and infinite in its capacity for love, wisdom, and creation. This essence, the seeker's true nature, is often described in spiritual traditions as a reflection of universal consciousness, the underlying current of existence that flows through all life, matter, and thought. Whether called Brahman in Indian philosophy, the divine breath, Ruach, in Hebrew mysticism, the source in New Age circles, or the ground of being in philosophical theology, this universal consciousness is not an external deity or distant power to be worshipped, but the very fabric of reality. The Master gently awakens the seeker to this truth, that they are not separate from this vast, living intelligence but of it, just as a wave is of the ocean or a thought is of the mind. This realization, often described as non-duality, dissolves the illusory boundaries between self and other, personal struggle and universal harmony, revealing a sacred unity that transcends language. The Master's teachings are not about leading the seeker down an external path to some future enlightenment, but about pointing to the infinite wellspring within. They remind the seeker that the journey is not to attain something out there, but to return to what they have always been, unshackled, radiant, and whole. This path mirrors the wisdom of ancient sages like the Buddha, who taught that liberation, nirvana, is not a state to be gained but the waking up to what is, or Rumi, who said, "You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop." The struggles the seeker faces, restlessness, longing, or confusion, are not obstacles to bypass but invitations to inquire. Who am I when these challenges arise? In this inquiry, the seeker begins to see that every breath, every moment of clarity amid chaos, is a whisper of their true nature. Moreover, the Master does not seek to extinguish the seeker's desires or ambitions but to realign them with this deeper truth. When the seeker understands their intrinsic connection to the universal source, their desires shift from seeking validation, control, or external fulfillment to a yearning for alignment with the flow of life. They come to see that giving from the fullness of their true self is more fulfilling than receiving, and that love, creativity, and service are not acts of sacrifice but expressions of their innate wholeness. The master becomes a guide not out of superiority, but as a fellow traveler who has glimpsed the horizon and wants to encourage others to look in the direction they already face. In essence, the master's role is not to lead the seeker across a bridge, but to remind them that they are the bridge, the journey, and the destination. They do not give the seeker a map, but ignite their inner compass, pointing not to distant stars but to the sun within. The seeker's awakening is not a transformation into something new but a recognition of what has always been true, that they are a luminous thread in the tapestry of existence, already whole, already home. The master, a wise and enlightened guide, does not appear to lead the seeker on a journey to a new and unfamiliar destination. Rather, their role is to awaken the seeker's own inherent ability to navigate the path of self-discovery, to see the world and themselves with clarity, to act from a place of love and compassion, and to realize their own divinity. This means that the master does not provide a roadmap or a set of instructions to follow, but instead empowers the seeker to tap into their own inner wisdom and guidance. The master's approach is not to give answers, but to awaken the questioner within the seeker. They encourage the seeker to explore their own thoughts, feelings, and experiences, and to seek answers from within. This is not to say that the master does not offer any guidance or support, but rather, they guide the seeker to look within themselves for the answers they seek. By doing so, the seeker develops a deeper understanding of themselves and the world around them, and becomes more self-aware, self-reflective, and self-directed. Similarly, the master does not provide solutions to the seeker's problems, but instead awakens the problem solver within. They help the seeker to develop their own critical thinking, creativity, and resourcefulness, so that they can approach challenges and obstacles with confidence and clarity. The master's role is not to fix the seeker's problems or make their decisions for them, but to empower them to take ownership of their lives, to trust their own instincts and abilities, and to find their own solutions. Furthermore, the master does not offer comfort in the classical sense, but instead awakens the source of inner peace within the seeker. They help the seeker to develop a deeper understanding of themselves and the world, and to cultivate a sense of inner calm, clarity, and compassion. This is not a temporary or superficial comfort, but a profound and lasting sense of peace that arises from within. The master's presence and guidance can be a source of comfort, but it is not a comfort that depends on external circumstances or external validation. Rather, it is a comfort that arises from the seeker's own inner wisdom, courage, and resilience. In essence, the master's role is not to lead, guide, or fix the seeker, but to empower them to become their own guide, guru, and source of wisdom. The master's presence and guidance can be a catalyst for the seeker's growth, transformation, and self-realization, but ultimately, the seeker must take responsibility for their own journey, and trust in their own ability to navigate the path ahead. By awakening the seeker's own inherent abilities, the master helps them to realize their own divinity, and to live a life that is authentic, meaningful, and fulfilling. The path of discernment is a profound and transformative journey that requires a deep level of self-awareness, introspection, and commitment to personal growth. It begins with the courage to sit in silence, to quiet the external noise and distractions that constantly bombard us, and to listen to the inner voice that whispers truth, wisdom, and guidance. This initial step demands a willingness to withdraw from the world's constant demands for external validation and direction, and instead, to turn inward, to seek the counsel of one's own heart and soul. As one embarks on this journey, they will encounter a profound sense of sincerity, the willingness to look honestly at oneself, without the veil of ego, pretenses, or self-deception. This sincerity involves acknowledging the shadows that reside within, as well as the light that shines brightly. It requires the courage to confront the parts of oneself that may be hidden, even from one's own awareness, and to accept them with compassion and understanding. This is not about judgment or self-criticism, but rather about embracing the entirety of one's being, with all its complexities and contradictions. As the path of discernment deepens, it blossoms with service, the recognition that true understanding is not for oneself alone, but has the potential to benefit all. This realization arises from the understanding that we are not isolated individuals, but interconnected beings, part of a larger web of life. When we cultivate discernment, we come to see that our own growth and awakening are inextricably linked to the growth and awakening of others. We begin to understand that our unique gifts, talents, and experiences are not solely for personal gain, but can be used to uplift, inspire, and support others. In its purest form, service becomes a reflection of the love and connection that inheres within us all. It is an expression of the universal principle that we are not separate, but are, in fact, interconnected aspects of a single, undivided whole. When we serve others, we are, in essence, serving ourselves, for we are recognizing and honoring the shared humanity that binds us together. This service can take many forms, from volunteering, to mentoring, to simply being present for a friend or loved one in need. Whatever its expression, service becomes a natural outpouring of the discernment that has been cultivated, a manifestation of the love, compassion, and wisdom that have been awakened. Ultimately, the path of discernment is a journey of discovery, growth, and transformation. It is a path that requires courage, sincerity, and a willingness to serve, but offers, in return, a profound sense of purpose, meaning, and fulfillment. As we walk this path, we come to realize that true discernment is not about achieving some sort of external validation or success, but about embodying the wisdom, love, and connection that reside within us all. We discover that the greatest gift we can offer the world is our own authentic, awakened presence, and that this gift has the power to transform not only our own lives, but the lives of all those around us. Your compass, your guide, your teacher. Ultimately, the journey of discernment is not a path to be walked in the shadows of external validation or societal expectation. It is a deeply personal pilgrimage, a sacred inner expedition that demands courage, curiosity, and quiet trust. True discernment is not about accumulating knowledge or memorizing rules. It is about cultivating inner tools that allow you to navigate the labyrinth of choices, relationships, and beliefs that shape your life. The most reliable guideposts are not carved into stone or written in holy books. They are etched into the quiet spaces of your being. They reside in the heart, the soul, and the longing that stirs within you. Let your heart be your compass. Your heart is not merely a metaphor for emotion, it is the seat of authentic discernment. When you learn to listen to your heart without the interference of the ego's chatter, you access a wellspring of intuitive truth. Practice becoming a witness to the subtle language of your inner world. Notice the tones of feeling when faced with a decision, a new relationship, or a transformative teaching. Pause. Do you feel warmth, lightness, or an opening in your chest? Does the situation feel like a gentle embrace or a constricting grip? These physical sensations are the heart's way of signaling alignment or misalignment. Discern the ego's tricks. The ego often disguises fear as caution, or resistance as wisdom. For example, the ego might tell you to avoid something that feels unfamiliar, labeling it too risky, even if the deeper truth is that it resonates with purpose. Let your heart ask, does this feel like a path of expansion, self-discovery, and love, or a retreat into comfort, control, or survival? Cultivate trust over time. The heart's wisdom grows stronger when honored consistently. If you've ignored its whispers in the past, begin gently. Reflect on times when you did follow your heart, who you were, how you felt, and the kind of growth that emerged. The more you act on its guidance, the clearer its voice becomes. Let your soul be your guide. Beyond the mind's noise and the heart's rhythms lies the soul, the still, luminous center of who you are. The soul is not bound by the stories you've inherited that, I am inadequate, I must prove myself, or I need external approval narratives. It is the part of you that remembers your intrinsic worth, your divine spark, and your connection to all life. To access this deeper guide, create sacred stillness, set aside time for silence, through meditation, journaling, or simply sitting in nature. In these pauses, you create a space for the soul to speak. Listen for sensations, wordless impressions, or even a sudden sense of clarity. These are the soul's messages. Release the masks of identity. Ask yourself, what roles, achievements, or beliefs define me? The soul is not a job title, a diagnosis, or a set of achievements. It is the quiet observer behind all of these. When you strip away the external, what remains? That is the guide. Follow the thread of presence. The soul thrives in the present moment. Pay attention to moments when you feel fully alive, when time dissolves, when your creativity flows effortlessly, or when you feel a profound sense of unity with others or with the natural world. These are the soul's fingerprints on your life. Let your longing be your teacher. The human spirit is wired for home, a home that is not a place, but a state of being. Your deepest longings, your yearning for truth, belonging, love, and purpose, are not random desires. They are the soul's GPS system, guiding you toward experiences and relationships that nourish your fullness. Identify the source of your longing. Many people confuse longing with fleeting wants, e.g., I need a new phone to be happy. But true longing is persistent, like a quiet ache that resists distraction. Ask, what part of me is calling? Is it a craving for authenticity in your relationships? A hunger to serve a greater cause? A thirst for creative expression? Recognize when you're off path. If you feel restless, unmoored, or as though something is missing in your life, that is the soul signaling misalignment. Conversely, when you follow your longing, if you create art, volunteer, or speak your truth, you may feel a sense of rightness, as though your life is finally singing in harmony with your essence. Let longing transform fear. Often, the ego resists the call of longing because it feels unsafe. What if I fail? What if I'm not worthy? But this is where courage meets surrender. Allow the longing to soften through action. Take one small step. Write the first sentence of your story, reach out to someone in need, or attend a gathering that stirs your soul. Each step deepens your trust in the process. The journey is already within you. The compass of your heart, the guide of your soul, and the teacher of your longing are not abstract ideals. They are living tools, waiting to be activated by your attention and action. As you walk this inner path, you may find that the answers you sought externally begin to emerge from within. You may discover that discernment is not about fixing what is broken, but about returning to what is already whole. And in that return, you'll find that the journey itself is the destination. The true ones, those guiding lights that illuminate the path to self-discovery and enlightenment, walk beside you at all times. They are ever present, an integral part of your being, as close to you as the breath that fills your lungs, as the beat of your heart, and as the thoughts that flow through your mind. In the stillness between thoughts, when the mind is quiet and the world outside recedes, they are there, a gentle presence that whispers truth and wisdom. They reside within the depths of your longing, that profound yearning that stirs within your soul, a reminder of the connection that binds you to the universe and to your own inner light. These true ones may not announce themselves with grand fanfare or flaunt their wisdom with elaborate robes or impressive titles. They do not seek to draw attention to themselves, for their purpose is not to elevate their own status, but to guide and support you on your journey. Instead, they move quietly, humbly, and patiently, their presence a subtle reminder of the light that shines within you. They are the guardians of your soul, the keepers of ancient wisdom, and the whisperers of truth. As you navigate the twists and turns of life, the true ones walk beside you, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal themselves. They wait for the heart to open, to become receptive to the teachings and the guidance that they offer. They wait for the mind to still, to quiet the chatter and the distractions that prevent you from hearing the whispers of your own soul. They wait for the soul to remember, to recall the wisdom and the knowledge that lies dormant within, waiting to be awakened. The true ones wait for the seeker to become ready, to reach a point of openness and receptivity that allows them to receive the gifts of wisdom, guidance, and love. They wait for the moment when you are willing to let go of your attachments, your fears, and your doubts, and to embrace the truth of who you are and what you are capable of. They wait for the moment when you are ready to step into your own power, to claim your own light, and to shine it forth into the world. In this waiting, the true ones are not idle. They are actively working to prepare you for the moment of revelation, gently nudging you, guiding you, and supporting you every step of the way. They are the unseen forces that shape your life, that nudge you toward your highest good, and that encourage you to become the best version of yourself. And when the time is right, when the heart is open, the mind is still, and the soul is ready, the true ones will reveal themselves, and you will know that you are not alone on your journey. You will know that you are accompanied by guides, mentors, and friends who are dedicated to helping you fulfill your deepest potential and to shine your light into the world. When you are truly ready, when the soil of your soul is prepared through patience, self-inquiry, and the quiet shedding of doubt, you will recognize the moment it arrives. This recognition will not stem from external trappings, such as grand gestures, outward authority, or the allure of perfection, but from a deep, ineffable resonance that stirs within you, as if a long-forgotten chord of your heart had finally been struck in harmony. It is not about intellectual recognition but an intuitive, soul-level understanding that transcends words. You might feel it as a gentle warmth blooming in your chest, a soft lightness in your breath, or a profound stillness that silences your inner noise. This warmth is not the fleeting excitement of a new idea or a charismatic leader, but a steady, unshakable clarity that radiates from within. It feels like coming home to a familiar place you've never been, yet somehow, you remember its contours in the marrow of your bones. There is no spectacle, no overwhelming fanfare. Instead, the world seems to pause, and the air around you grows lighter, as though a veil has lifted from your spirit. In this moment, you will understand, not with your mind, but as your entire being aligns with the truth that has always been there. It is akin to hearing your own voice reflected in another's words, a mirror held to the unspoken wisdom you've carried. Their presence will not demand your attention or rewrite your purpose. They will simply reveal what was already yours to see. The path forward, once shrouded in uncertainty, will unfold like a river finding its course through unblocked terrain. You will trust the current, knowing it flows from your own divine compass. This journey of discernment is not a linear pursuit but a sacred unfolding. It asks you to turn inward, to let go of comparisons, external validation, and the illusion that answers lie solely in others. With each step, you are learning to distinguish between what resonates authentically and what is merely a reflection of societal expectations or unhealed wounds. The destination is not another figure to follow, but a reunion with the eternal teacher within you, the luminous source that predates your thoughts and outlives them. This is the universal creative force, the timeless light that hums at the core of your existence, waiting to be acknowledged. When you return to this inner teacher, you realize that recognition was never about finding something outside yourself. It was always an act of self-discovery, a remembering of your own inherent wisdom and connection to the vast, unbroken web of life. In that alignment, you become both student and sage, guided not by fear or confusion, but by the radiant simplicity of trust in your own truth. Lesson 2: The illusion of spiritual performance. In this extraordinary age of awakening, a profound and far-reaching shift is occurring within the human consciousness. It is as if the collective soul of humanity has been stirred, and the desire to explore deeper truths and understand the mysteries of existence is resonating within countless individuals. Like ripples spreading across a still pond, this call to awaken is echoing through every aspect of modern life, touching the hearts and minds of people from all walks of life. The world, or at least a significant portion of it, seems to be awakening, or at the very least, many are actively seeking to awaken to a new reality, one that is more authentic, meaningful, and spiritually fulfilling. As we navigate this evolving landscape, we find ourselves surrounded by an increasingly diverse and saturated array of spiritual offerings. The spiritual marketplace, once a niche domain, has expanded exponentially, with a plethora of teachers, gurus, mystics, and influencers vying for our attention. There are teachers draped in traditional robes, their presence commanding and otherworldly, who claim to possess ancient wisdom and mystical knowledge. These spiritual leaders often exude an aura of authority and mystique, as if they have accessed realms beyond the mundane and can guide us through the labyrinth of spiritual growth. Alongside these traditional teachers, we also find mystics, often bearing titles that suggest deep wisdom and spiritual attainment, such as enlightened master or spiritual guru. These individuals share esoteric knowledge and teachings with those who dare to listen, often weaving complex and intricate narratives that promise to reveal the hidden secrets of the universe. Their words are often laced with an air of mystery and profundity, leaving their audiences in awe of their apparent wisdom and spiritual insight. And then, of course, there are the influencers, figures who have leveraged social media and other online platforms to build large followings and establish themselves as spiritual authorities. These individuals often deliver their words with a sacred tone, as if they are channeling divine wisdom or imparting ancient secrets to their devoted followers. Their lifestyles are often carefully curated to appear aligned with enlightenment, showcasing a perfect blend of spirituality, wellness, and luxury. They share their supposedly profound insights, spiritual practices, and ritualistic routines, which are meticulously crafted to inspire and motivate their audience to embark on their own spiritual journeys. In this vast and eclectic spiritual landscape, it can be challenging to discern what is genuine and what is mere illusion. The lines between authenticity and performance, wisdom and theatrics, are often blurred, leaving many seekers of truth wondering what is real and what is simply a cleverly constructed facade. As we delve deeper into the world of spirituality, it is essential to recognize the illusion of spiritual performance, to distinguish between those who truly embody spiritual wisdom and those who are merely playing a role. By doing so, we can navigate this complex and often confusing terrain with greater discernment, ultimately uncovering the profound truths and genuine spiritual guidance that can help us awaken to our full potential. The spiritual marketplace is a dazzling, almost overwhelming spectacle that presents a vast and diverse array of choices for those seeking enlightenment, healing, and transformation. Like a vibrant and eclectic bazaar, it offers a cornucopia of products, services, and experiences that promise to facilitate spiritual growth, inner peace, and connection to the divine. From rituals that claim to harness the power of ancient traditions to crystals believed to hold the essence of mystical energies, the options seem endless and tantalizing. One can find rituals that promise to heal emotional wounds, transform negative patterns, and awaken higher states of consciousness. These rituals may involve sacred ceremonies, meditation practices, or energy work, each with its own unique philosophy and methodology. Some rituals may be rooted in traditional spiritual practices, while others may be more modern and experimental, blending elements from various cultures and disciplines. The promise of these rituals is that they can provide a shortcut to spiritual awakening, a way to bypass the challenges and uncertainties of the journey and arrive at a state of enlightenment more quickly. In addition to rituals, the spiritual marketplace also offers a wide range of crystals and gemstones believed to hold ancient energies and vibrations. These crystals are often touted as having the power to balance the body's energy, calm the mind, and connect us to the universe. Each crystal is said to possess its own unique properties and benefits, from amplifying intention and manifestation to protecting against negative energies and promoting emotional healing. The allure of these crystals lies in their promise to serve as a tangible tool for spiritual growth, a physical object that can be held and worn to channel and focus one's energy. Symbols and sacred geometry are also prominent features of the spiritual marketplace. These visual representations of spiritual concepts and principles are meant to connect us to the divine, facilitate personal growth, and provide a deeper understanding of the universe and our place within it. Symbols such as the Om, the cross, or the Ankh are often used in meditation, rituals, and energy work, and are believed to hold the power to awaken higher states of consciousness and promote spiritual evolution. As one navigates the spiritual marketplace, it can be tempting to get caught up in the promise of shortcuts and quick fixes. The market seems to whisper, "Buy this, and your journey will be easier. Purchase this experience, and you will arrive faster." The temptation is to believe that external tools, products, or experiences can provide a magical solution to our spiritual aspirations, that we can bypass the hard work and dedication required for true growth and transformation. However, the reality is that spiritual growth is a deeply personal and individual journey, one that requires commitment, discipline, and self-awareness. While the spiritual marketplace can offer valuable resources and inspiration, it is ultimately up to each individual to discern what is truly meaningful and effective for their own unique path. Beneath the dazzling veneer of this bustling spiritual marketplace, an expanse alive with the kaleidoscopic glimmer of crystals, the hypnotic swirl of incense, the rhythmic hum of chants blending with the clinking of wind chimes, there lies a whisper unbounded by price tags or packaging. The air shimmers with the allure of quick fixes, tarot readings promising clarity, elixirs touted to transmute energy, candles labeled for love, wealth, or protection. Yet, amid the cacophony of commerce and the choreography of seekers clutching their purchases, a quieter, more ancient rhythm pulses. It is not the vibrant glow of the neon signs or the glossy sheen of sacred texts displayed like treasure, but a subtle, almost imperceptible resonance, a call that bypasses the intellect and nestles into the marrow of the soul. This is the voice of something older than markets, older than doctrines, older than the human need to name and sell the ineffable. It is the echo of the unlit cave, the stillness behind the storm, the ache for a connection that transcends transaction. The authentic seeker, with their heart frayed by the noise of half-truths and hollow gestures, feels it most keenly, a yearning not for answers, but for the courage to ask the question that words cannot hold. It is a call that does not shout, but insists itself in the spaces between breaths, in the hush of dawn before the first bell, in the quiet surrender of a petal falling from a lotus. And in that stillness there is a promise, not of answers, but of becoming. This lesson represents a profound exploration into the essence of a multifaceted phenomenon that has been unfolding in the realm of contemporary spirituality. It is specifically designed to resonate with and provide guidance to the sincere seeker who is embarking on a personal journey of discovery, navigating the complex and often bewildering landscape of modern spiritual practices and ideologies. These seekers are individuals who are genuinely and ardently seeking profound truths, a deeper sense of connection with themselves, others, and the universe, and a more enlightened understanding of the world and their place within it. At its core, this lesson aims to shed light on a critical and frequently overlooked distinction that exists at the pivotal intersection of authentic, heartfelt spirituality and the more superficial, performative aspects that have become increasingly prevalent in the contemporary spiritual scene. This distinction is crucial because it separates the profound, transformative experiences and connections that true spiritual exploration can offer from the shallower, more superficial engagements that may prioritize image, status, or material gain over genuine spiritual growth and inner development. The contemporary spiritual landscape is characterized by a diverse array of practices, philosophies, and communities, each offering its unique perspective on the path to enlightenment, healing, and self-realization. However, amidst this richness and diversity, there has also emerged a trend towards the commodification and spectacle of spirituality, where spiritual practices and ideologies are sometimes used as a means to project a certain image, gain followers, or sell products and services. This performative aspect of modern spirituality can lead to confusion among seekers, making it challenging for them to discern what is genuinely nourishing and transformative from what is merely superficial or exploitative. By illuminating the distinction between authentic spirituality and its more performative, superficial counterparts, this lesson seeks to empower sincere seekers with the discernment and insight they need to navigate this complex landscape more effectively. It invites them to look beyond the outward trappings and manifestations of spiritual practice and to delve deeper into the heart of what it means to embark on a spiritual journey, one that is characterized by honesty, humility, and a profound commitment to personal growth, healing, and the pursuit of truth. Through this process, seekers can cultivate a more authentic, meaningful, and enduring connection with their spiritual practices, with others, and with the profound mysteries of existence itself. Ultimately, the goal of this lesson is not only to educate but to inspire and guide seekers on their path towards a deeper, more authentic engagement with spirituality, fostering a community that values sincerity, integrity, and the unwavering pursuit of spiritual truth. The core message here is a profound reminder of the complexity and potential pitfalls inherent in spiritual paths, teachings, and seekership. At its heart, it warns against the assumption that verbal proclamations of enlightenment, wisdom, or truth automatically equate to lived experience. Not all who speak of light, metaphorically representing truth, awareness, or spiritual awakening, actually walk in it. Their words may lack the grounding of authenticity, humility, or the deep, transformative work required to embody such wisdom. Similarly, not all who teach, no matter how charismatic, eloquent, or influential they appear, are rooted in the truth they claim to offer. Some may lack the depth of understanding, ethical grounding, or personal integration necessary to transmit knowledge genuinely. The abundance of spiritual options in our modern world exacerbates this danger. The proliferation of self-proclaimed gurus, online courses, retreats, and self-help philosophies creates a marketplace of ideas where authenticity and substance are often overshadowed by branding, charisma, and the allure of convenience. This spiritual buffet can become a breeding ground for illusion, where seekers, in their eagerness to find meaning, may conflate popularity with validity. The most dazzling packages, polished social media personas, theatrical performances of enlightenment, or emotionally charged rhetoric, are frequently mistaken for the substance of genuine spiritual practice. Moreover, the seeker's earnestness, while a noble and necessary quality, can become a vulnerability when untethered from discernment. In their urgency to transcend suffering, connect with truth, or find belonging, seekers may gravitate toward the most accessible or seductive offerings, mistaking superficial ease for depth. This dynamic is fertile ground for illusion, as performance often masquerades as authenticity. A teacher may project an image of wisdom without the rigorous self-inquiry required to uphold it. A path may promise rapid enlightenment without demanding the slow, unglamorous work of self-transformation. The message implicitly challenges both teachers and students to cultivate integrity and critical awareness. For teachers, it calls for humility, transparency, and the hard labor of aligning one's life with one's teachings. For seekers, it demands patience, curiosity, and the courage to look beyond the glitter of a teaching to its source, ethics, and long-term effects. True spirituality, it suggests, is not a product to be consumed or a performance to be admired, but a living process of alignment, one that requires both light and shadow, and the willingness to walk through both. The danger lies not in the search itself, but in mistaking the map for the territory, or the mirror for the reflection. Therefore, it is imperative for the seeker of truth and authenticity to cultivate a critical yet often overlooked skill, the art of discerning the invisible current that flows beneath appearances. This is not a passive ability but an active practice, one that demands the seeker to sharpen their awareness and attune themselves to the subtle language of the heart. It begins with learning to feel the difference, not as an intellectual exercise, but as a visceral, embodied experience that transcends the noise of surface-level distractions. However, this discernment is not rooted in evaluating external markers, the gilded robes of an authority figure, the grandeur of a title, or the dazzle of social influence. These are mere illusions, shadows cast by the flickering fire of ego. When we judge based on such criteria, we risk mistaking the trappings of power for the presence of wisdom, the echo of popularity for the substance of truth. The seeker, however, must train their mind and spirit to look beyond this superficial stage. Instead, the true essence of this skill lies in the cultivation of internal resonance, a quiet, intuitive knowing that arises when the mind stills and the heart opens. It is the sensation of two frequencies aligning, like two tuning forks vibrating in harmony. To sense this, one must first create the space for stillness. This requires retreating from the cacophony of modern life, the constant demands of logic and comparison, and instead entering the sacred silence of the soul. It is there, in the uncluttered sanctuary of the inner world, that the seeker begins to perceive the subtle undercurrents of authenticity, a gentle warmth, a profound calm, a sense of yes, or no, that bypasses reason and speaks directly to the essence of one's being. Cultivating this resonance is a lifelong journey. It demands regular practices, mindfulness to anchor awareness in the present, meditation to dissolve mental clutter, and humility to question one's own assumptions. The seeker must become a student of the subtle, learning to recognize how truth manifests in the body, a lightness in the chest, a softening of the breath, a quiet certainty. Conversely, when encountering falsity, the heart may tighten, the mind may quicken with unease, and the soul may recoil, even when the surface appears polished and persuasive. Ultimately, this ability to feel the deeper alignment between self and reality is the compass that guides the seeker toward authenticity, away from the mirages of validation and external approval. It is not a passive gift but a discipline, a sacred art honed through patience, vulnerability, and the courage to trust the quiet voice within. In a world that prizes spectacle over substance, the one who masters this skill becomes a guardian of truth, a witness to the unspoken harmony that connects all that is real. Applause. Truth simply is a luminous, unyielding force that exists independently of human perception, affirmation, or denial. It is not a construct of the mind to be bent or broken by will, nor a shadow to be flickered into or out of existence by convenience. Instead, it stands as the bedrock of all that is, a silent sentinel of objective reality that persists even when the world turns its back on it. Consider the sun, a celestial colossus that blazes with unrelenting consistency, broadcasting light and warmth to a universe unaware of its glory. Whether eyes are raised to its brilliance or averted in indifference, its radiance continues to shape the tides, nourish the forests, and dictate the rhythms of life. Similarly, the ground beneath our feet remains steadfast, a silent supporter that bears the weight of civilizations and the chaos of storms alike. It crumbles not in the face of our forgetfulness, nor does it retreat when we forget to praise its role in sustaining us. Truth, too, operates beyond the theater of human attention. It does not require accolades or validation to affirm its reality. This constancy is what makes truth both profound and discomfiting. It endures when we choose to ignore it, much like gravity persists even as a child floats a paper airplane in defiance of its pull. We may craft illusions, spin narratives, or lose ourselves in the art of denial, but these acts do not alter the essence of truth, they merely complicate our relationship to it. A river flows its course regardless of the man-made dams we erect to block its path. So too does truth carve its path through the chaos of human ignorance. In the tapestry of existence, truth is the thread that binds the visible to the infinite. It is the reason a tree grows toward the sun, the reason seasons change without the need for permission, the reason 2 + 2 will always equal 4, even when a world grows desperate for falsehoods. To grasp this truth is to acknowledge a humbling yet liberating truth. We are not the authors of reality, but its witnesses. And like the sun or the ground, we are both shaped by it and dwarfed by it, a constant reminder that some forces are beyond our power to alter, only to honor. Yet, in honoring it, we find clarity. To walk with truth is to walk the path of the stars, which have guided sailors and dreamers for millennia without ever needing to explain themselves. It is to stand rooted in the earth's quiet strength, unshaken by the storms of doubt or the tempests of lies. Truth, in its quiet immovability, is both a challenge and a gift. To see it, to honor it, and to allow it to shape not just the world, but the way we dwell within it. For the discerning seeker on a path of growth, clarity, or truth, the foundational act is not to chase external answers but to first turn inward, sharpening the lens of self-awareness. This involves cultivating a profound attunement to one's own inner landscape, the subtle shifts of emotion, the flickers of intuition, and the quiet language of the soul. Such awareness becomes the compass that guides the seeker to discern the true essence of what is presented, not merely in surface form. It is a practice of vigilance, to notice not only the explicit content of an interaction, whether a person's words, a ritual's gestures, or a teaching's structure, but also the unspoken spaces around it. What is not being said? What energy lingers beneath the surface? What intentions are masked by rhetoric or tradition? This discernment requires more than intellectual analysis. it demands sensory openness. It is about listening between the lines, tuning into the emotional and energetic undertones that words often obscure. Think of it as attuning to the resonance of a musical note beyond its pitch, feeling the warmth or coldness of its vibration, the sincerity or strain behind its rhythm. A truly aligned presence, whether in a human voice, a sacred ceremony, or a philosophical exposition, carries a distinct frequency. It is felt in the body as ease or resistance, in the heart as warmth or unease. To practice this, one must become fluent in the body's dialogue with the world, trusting the subtle knowing that arises when attention is fully present. Yet this skill is not merely passive, it is an active commitment to authenticity. When engaging with a teacher, a tradition, or a spiritual path, the seeker must ask, does this presence honor the truth of being, or does it rehearse a facade? Is the energy of what is offered aligned with the wholeness of life, or does it fragment, control, or dissemble? A person's authenticity can be detected in their openness to uncertainty, their willingness to hold space for questions, and the consistency between their inner vision and outward actions. A ritual's authenticity lies not in its spectacle but in the intention behind it, its capacity to bridge the physical and the sacred. A teaching's truth is not in its cleverness or completeness but in its humility, its ability to dissolve the ego's need for certainty and invite deeper inquiry. This practice of inner awareness is both a discipline and a gift. It demands patience, as false patterns and conditioned beliefs may cloud perception initially. But over time, it nurtures a quiet confidence, the ability to trust one's discernment without relying on external validation. It is the art of seeing through illusions, not through skepticism, but through presence. And in this presence, the seeker begins to recognize that the greatest revelations are not found in what is grandly proclaimed, but in the quiet spaces where truth breathes freely, unburdened by the need to be heard. Thus, the journey of discernment begins not with answers, but with a radical willingness to sit with the unknown, to let the heart become the discerning instrument, and to allow the silence between the words to speak volumes. This requires moving beyond the superficial, a step that is often overlooked in our quest for spiritual growth and enlightenment. In order to embark on a genuine journey of self-discovery and spiritual evolution, we must learn to distinguish between spirituality that is merely theatrical and spirituality that is truly transformative. The distinction between these two forms of spirituality is crucial, as it determines the depth and sincerity of our spiritual practice. The theatrical spirituality is all around us, often masquerading as the real thing. It wears costumes that may be beautiful or ornate, designed to impress and create a certain impression. These costumes can take many forms, from elaborate robes and ritualistic regalia to more subtle expressions of piety, such as pious speech or affected mannerisms. The intention behind these costumes is not to facilitate genuine spiritual growth, but rather to project an image of spirituality, to create an aura of sanctity or mystique that commands respect and admiration from others. Theatrical spirituality also speaks in rehearsed phrases, often drawn from sacred texts but used more as catchphrases or signifiers of knowledge than as lived truths. These phrases can be cleverly crafted to sound profound and insightful, but they are often devoid of real substance or personal experience. They are used to create an impression of spiritual sophistication, to demonstrate one's familiarity with spiritual concepts and terminology, rather than to convey any genuine understanding or depth of insight. This kind of spirituality is concerned more with appearances than with actual spiritual development, more with projecting an image of spirituality than with cultivating a deep and abiding connection with the divine. In contrast, transformative spirituality is concerned with the authentic and often difficult work of inner transformation. It recognizes that true spiritual growth and enlightenment require a willingness to confront and transcend our limitations, to challenge our assumptions and biases, and to embark on a journey of self-discovery and introspection. This kind of spirituality is not interested in quick fixes or easy answers, but rather in the slow and often painful process of spiritual maturation. It recognizes that spiritual growth is a lifelong journey, one that requires patience, dedication, and a willingness to confront our own darkness and imperfections. The theatrical spirituality, on the other hand, offers instant enlightenment, quick fixes, and easy answers that bypass the often difficult and necessary work of inner transformation. It promises rapid spiritual advancement, miraculous healings, and supernatural experiences, all of which can be achieved without any real effort or commitment. This kind of spirituality is concerned with short-term gains and fleeting experiences, rather than with long-term growth and lasting transformation. It is a spirituality of convenience, one that seeks to avoid the challenges and difficulties of the spiritual journey, rather than embracing them as opportunities for growth and self-discovery. In order to move beyond the superficial and to cultivate a genuinely transformative spirituality, we must be willing to challenge our assumptions and to question our motivations. We must be prepared to embark on a journey of self-discovery and introspection, one that requires honesty, humility, and a willingness to confront our own limitations and imperfections. We must be willing to let go of our attachment to superficial appearances and to focus instead on the deeper, more profound aspects of spiritual growth and development. Only then can we hope to experience the transformative power of spirituality, and to discover the depth and richness of the spiritual life. This kind of spirituality, with its intricate layers and deliberate artistry, can be a breathtaking spectacle to witness. The rituals that define such practices are often painstakingly choreographed, every movement, symbol, and element chosen to evoke a sense of sacredness and purpose. Think of the precision in a ceremonial dance, where participants don vibrant, handcrafted garments that shimmer under dim, incense-laden light, or the rhythmic cadence of chants that resonate through a candlelit room, weaving sound and scent into a tapestry of transcendence. The visual grandeur, be it mandalas painted in layers of crushed gemstones, intricate altar arrangements brimming with flowers, crystals, and relics, or the flickering interplay of fire and shadow during a fire ceremony, creates a feast for the senses, inviting observers to lose themselves in its beauty. At the center of this spectacle often stands the teacher, a figure whose presence radiates a magnetic charisma. Their voice, smooth and authoritative, might carry the weight of ancient wisdom, while their gestures, whether palms raised in blessing, fingers tracing symbols in the air, or a simple, piercing gaze, seem imbued with the power to stir the soul. This leader is not just an instructor but a living embodiment of the practice, someone who exudes an aura of tranquility or intensity, compelling followers to lean closer, listen deeper, and believe more fully. Their words feel like mantras, their silence like sermons, and their very existence a bridge between the mundane and the mystical. The community that emerges around such spirituality often feels like a sanctuary, a tightly knit, almost familial collective where every member is wrapped in shared purpose and reverence. There's an undercurrent of exclusivity, a subtle understanding that to be part of this group is to belong to something rare and profound. Laughter, tears, and moments of insight are exchanged like sacred currency, and the collective energy, whether in a circle of prayer, a drum circle at twilight, or a silent meditation, vibrates with a unity that can feel both comforting and intoxicating. Participants find solace in the unspoken vows of solidarity, the assurance that, within these circles, they are seen, heard, and held. The atmosphere itself is a character in this narrative. In the beginning, it glimmers with an almost otherworldly luminosity, the kind that makes your breath catch when you step into a room filled with strangers united by a shared yearning. Consider the grandeur of a meditation session staged in a vast, sunlit hall where hundreds of individuals, clad in flowing robes, sit cross-legged on a mat of woven colors, their synchronized breathing forming a palpable wave of stillness. Or imagine a complex energy healing protocol, where practitioners move like choreographed sages, hands weaving intricate patterns above the bodies of those lying on the floor, their whispered affirmations and precise hand placements promising to unravel decades of trauma in a single session. Even the logistics, the arrival of attendees with offerings like lotus flowers, the scent of sandalwood in the air, the soft hum of background music, seamlessly contributes to the illusion of a world where the divine and the human coexist in delicate harmony. And yet, beneath this surface beauty lies a paradox. For all its elegance, this spirituality can sometimes become a curated experience, a performance where the profound is masked by the picturesque. The same inclusivity that fosters connection can also breed exclusivity, creating enclaves where outsiders feel like intruders. The rituals, for all their artistry, may risk becoming empty pageantry if the essence, the inner work of self-reflection, compassion, and humility, is neglected. Still, in its most potent form, this aestheticized spirituality has the power to awaken something dormant in the soul, offering a fleeting glimpse of the sublime. It is a beginning, perhaps, a doorway through which the seeker steps, not to remain, but to explore what lies beyond the glitter. However, beauty, even spiritual beauty, without depth, without substance, is akin to a grand feast made entirely of wax. At first glance, it is undeniably impressive, capturing the eye with its intricate details and vibrant colors. The presentation is flawless, and the aroma that wafts from the table is enticing, teasing the senses and building anticipation. It might even evoke a profound emotional response, stirring the heart and uplifting the spirit. The initial encounter can be nothing short of mesmerizing, leaving the observer in a state of wonder and awe. Yet, despite its captivating appearance, this waxen feast is ultimately inedible. It cannot satisfy the hunger that lies deep within, nor can it provide the nourishment that the soul truly craves. The experience may be intense and alluring, but it is fleeting, leaving the seeker feeling unfulfilled and empty once the initial excitement has worn off. It provides a temporary illusion of fulfillment, a distraction from the genuine work that lies deeper within, a work that requires patience, dedication, and a willingness to confront the depths of one's own being. This kind of spiritual beauty, devoid of substance and depth, offers the appearance of transformation without the actual process of inner alchemy. It promises a quick fix, a superficial makeover, rather than a profound and lasting transformation. The seeker who relies solely on this kind of performance-based spirituality may find themselves feeling increasingly empty, seeking the next dazzling experience, the next charismatic leader, or the next trendy spiritual practice. They may attend workshop after workshop, seminar after seminar, and yet never truly touch the heart of what they are searching for. As a result, they may become trapped in a never-ending cycle of seeking, always chasing the next spiritual high, but never quite finding the satisfaction and fulfillment they desire. They may begin to feel like a traveler who has been walking in circles, never really getting anywhere, despite the distance they have covered. The landscape may change, the scenery may shift, but the destination remains elusive, always just out of reach. In contrast, true spiritual growth and transformation require a willingness to engage with the depths of one's own being, to confront the shadow, to explore the unknown, and to embark on a journey of self-discovery. It demands a commitment to the process of inner alchemy, a process that involves the dissolution of old patterns, the transcendence of limitations, and the rebirth of the self. This journey is not always easy, nor is it always glamorous, but it is the only path that can lead to true fulfillment, to a sense of purpose and meaning that is not fleeting, but lasting. Ultimately, the seeker must come to realize that true beauty, true spiritual beauty, is not just about the external trappings, the rituals, the practices, or the experiences. It is about the depth, the substance, the richness of the inner life. It is about the cultivation of wisdom, compassion, and awareness. It is about the development of a profound and lasting connection to the self, to others, and to the world. Only then can the seeker truly find what they are looking for. Only then can they experience the nourishment that their soul craves. And only then can they embark on a journey that is truly transformative. True wisdom, in contrast, is often a silent, unassuming force, more felt than seen, more sensed than spoken aloud. It does not parade itself in the neon glow of validation or demand applause for its presence. Instead, it dwells in the quiet corners of the soul, woven into the fabric of those who have traversed the arduous, winding path of inner transformation. These individuals have not merely observed the fires of adversity, they have walked through them, letting the searing heat purify their illusions, melt away the brittle shells of ego, and refine their understanding into something pure and immutable. Their journey has been one of conscious evolution, where each misstep, each moment of doubt, has become a stepping stone to a deeper recognition of the self and the world. Wisdom of this nature is born not in the theater of attention but in the stillness of introspection. It does not crave the spotlight. It is the steady flame of knowing that persists even when no one is watching. Those who embody it have grown through the labyrinth of self-deception, navigating its twisting corridors of fear, pride, and societal conditioning, until they emerge into a realm where truth is no longer a construct but a lived reality. Here, awareness is no longer fragmented. It is a tapestry of insights, stitched together by the threads of humility, patience, and a profound respect for the quiet power of presence. This form of wisdom is not about eloquence or the ability to impress. It is about the unyielding, subtle growth of being. It is the soft whisper of insight that arises when one stops trying to prove themselves, when the mind quiets, and the heart becomes attuned to the rhythm of life itself. It thrives in the mundane moments, the pause before a reaction, the acceptance of uncertainty, the gentleness with which one holds their own imperfections. It is the understanding that knowledge without compassion is hollow, and that true mastery lies not in having answers, but in being willing to sit with the unanswered, to listen, and to trust the unfolding of the unknown. In a world that often equates grandeur with greatness, true wisdom humbly resides in the depths of those who have turned inward and found the light there. It does not seek to be seen because it already is seen in the quiet strength of its actions, the authenticity of its choices, and the serenity of its impact. Such wisdom is not a performance. It is the quiet revolution of the soul, an alchemy that transforms suffering into empathy, confusion into clarity, and noise into silence. And in this silence, it speaks the loudest. It does not need to be sold. True spiritual insight transcends the marketplace of ideas and the transactional nature of material exchange. It is not a commodity to be bartered or a service to be contracted for personal gain. Instead, it exists in a realm where value is not measured in coins or credits, but in the quiet resonance of truth that awakens the soul. This insight flows like a river from its source in the boundless depths of consciousness, unshackled by the constraints of ownership or scarcity. When someone offers such wisdom, they are not curating a product for consumption. They are simply extending their hand, allowing the light they hold to pass through them as a natural act of generosity. True spiritual insight is a gift, one that is often shared freely, unburdened by the weight of expectation or the demands of reciprocity. It does not require the seeker's validation, nor does it hunger for applause. Imagine a teacher who speaks not to amass followers, but to ignite fire in the hearts of those who listen. Their words are not crafted to satisfy the ego of the giver, but to dissolve the illusions that veil the seeker's own truth. In this way, spiritual wisdom is like a seed, dropped into fertile soil without the need to witness its growth. The giver trusts that the seed carries within it the blueprint of its own flourishing. Perhaps this sharing occurs in a way that does not depend on the seeker's validation or financial contribution. In a world where even the sacred risks commodification, true spiritual insight resists being tied to the strings of obligation. It is not held hostage by the currency of materialism or the need for acknowledgement. A sage who walks the path does not require a throne, a contract, or a retinue of admirers to affirm their worth. Their authority lies in the harmony of their own alignment with the universal truth, which cannot be bought, sold, or diluted by human metrics. When a seeker receives such wisdom, it is not in exchange for anything they have given, nor in return for a debt they must repay, but as a mirror held up to their own inner light. It is offered from a place of abundance, not scarcity. Abundance in the spiritual realm is not about excess, but about the boundless nature of awareness itself. When a spiritual teacher shares from this wellspring, they do not subtract from the whole, they multiply it. Their generosity is not a drain, but a gift that cascades outward, feeding others while remaining full within. This is the paradox of true sharing. The more it is given, the more it expands. Unlike the limited resources of the physical world, spiritual insight is infinite in its potential to be shared. To offer from abundance is to recognize that wisdom is not diminished by generosity, it is elevated by it. Scarcity, in contrast, thrives on the illusion of possession, hoarding truth as if it were a treasure that must be rationed. But such scarcity is a shadow, a distortion of the truth that belongs to all. It is given without expectation of return, other than the potential awakening of the recipient. There is no score to be settled, no ledger to tally what is owed. The only currency that matters here is the intangible alchemy of transformation. The giver does not ask for gratitude in the form of flowers, praise, or even discipleship. Their deepest wish is not for their own name to be remembered, but for the seeker to remember themselves. This is the silent pact of true spiritual exchange. The giver becomes a midwife to the recipient's inner revelation, helping to birth what was always present beneath their own egoic layers. The reward is not in receiving, but in witnessing the spark in another's eyes as they glimpse the infinite. In the end, such wisdom thrives in the space between transaction and transcendence. It is a hand extended without a handshake, a love expressed without a price, and a path illuminated by the quiet confidence that some things, like truth, are not meant to be owned, only shared. This expansion weaves in metaphors, contrasts, and deeper philosophical reflections to amplify the original message while preserving its core essence. It invites the reader to contemplate the liberating nature of spiritual insight and the radical generosity that fuels its transmission. The profound wisdom of the authentic practitioner is not merely an intellectual construct but a living truth forged in the crucible of the soul's deepest trials. This wisdom resides in those rare individuals who have not merely theorized about transformation but have walked through fire, a harrowing, incendiary metaphor that captures the essence of a metamorphosis far beyond comfort or surface understanding. The fire here is not a metaphor of destruction alone, but of transmutative alchemy, a process akin to the ancient philosopher's stone, where base metals and base human conditions are reforged into gold. To walk through fire is to enter willingly into the white-hot forge of self-examination. It is the willingness to sit, unflinching, in the glare of one's own inadequacies, those crumpled, unspoken parts of the psyche that refuse to be silenced by the noise of the external world. This is not a passive act of observation but an active confrontation with the shadow, the unresolved traumas, the unacknowledged desires, the suppressed emotions that fester like embers beneath the surface of daily life. In this fire, the practitioner burns away the dross of denial, peeling back layers of self-justification and societal conditioning to touch the raw core of their being. The pain of this confrontation is not incidental, it is the price of authenticity. When the practitioner turns inward, they are forced to face truths that society often shuns, that love is not always tender, that freedom is often terrifying, that growth is inseparable from discomfort. The shadow aspects, those fragments of the self deemed too monstrous, too weak, or too unacceptable to integrate, rampage in the form of obsessive thoughts, defensive rages, or sudden, inexplicable sadnesses. These are not to be banished but embraced, for in the act of bearing witness to them with compassion, the fire of transformation begins to purify what was once muddied by shame. Then there is the relentless challenge of letting go. The fire here is symbolic of the furnace that melts the armor of the ego. The practitioner must relinquish the scaffolding of deeply ingrained beliefs, whether they are the dogmas of religion, the scripts of cultural identity, or the comforting illusions of certainty. This is not a passive surrender but a conscious act of will, like watching a lifeboat sink in a storm and choosing to row toward the horizon regardless. Each belief shed, be it the myth of being in control, the delusion of permanence in a world that is ceaseless flow, or the illusion of separateness from the web of existence, leaves the practitioner more vulnerable, and therefore more alive. Yet the fiercest flames of the crucible burn in the periods of doubt and confusion. Here, the practitioner becomes a solitary figure on a barren plateau, staring into the void that yawns between what was and what could be. The old frameworks have collapsed, and the new ones are not yet born. In this liminal space, a spiritual purgatory, there is no map, no authority to consult, only the raw, unfiltered pulse of the heart. It is here that the illusion of control burns brightest, the desperate need to fix, to force, to understand. To walk through this fire is to relinquish the need for answers and instead kneel before the mystery, to let the unknown itself be the teacher. Finally, the fire consumes the illusions that have kept the practitioner bound. The illusion of the separate self, the Cartesian ghost in the machine, collapses under the weight of an awakened awareness that the self is not a fortress but a flowing river, part of a vast and indivisible whole. The illusion of permanence, the false belief that the self, the world, or even pain, is fixed, crumbles as the practitioner glimpses the impermanence of all things. And the illusion of control, that fatal delusion of mastery, is reduced to ash by the recognition that life's meaning is found not in commanding the wind but in learning to dance with it. What remains after the fire? Not a purified, perfected soul, but a living truth, the understanding that authenticity is not a destination but a daily pilgrimage. The wisdom of the practitioner, then, is not a secret to be hoarded but a flame to be kindled in others. It is carried in the heart not as an artifact of suffering but as a testament to the courage to burn anything that stands between the self and the unfiltered light of being. In this way, the fire becomes both the wound and the remedy, the death and the rebirth, a testament to the ancient and eternal truth that wisdom is not found, it is earned. Lesson: those who have truly walked through the inferno of profound adversity, be it personal loss, existential turmoil, or the shattering of long-held beliefs, emerge not as hollow remnants, but as beings refined through trials that burn away the superficial and the false. This fire is not merely external hardship, but the crucible of inward struggle, the confrontation of one's deepest fears, the dismantling of self-deceptions, and the arduous journey into the raw, unfiltered core of existence. What sets such individuals apart is not the absence of pain, but their willingness to meet it fully. They do not flee from the flames or mask its heat with denial. Instead, they allow the fire to teach them, to strip away the dross of conditioned thought, societal programming, and the brittle armor of ego. What remains is not destruction, but a kind of alchemical transmutation, a forging into something stronger, purer, and more aligned with their authentic nature. This refinement is not abstract. It is a lived knowing, an intimate understanding that selfhood is not fixed, but a dynamic interplay of choices, perceptions, and the ever-evolving dance between light and shadow. They come to see themselves not as static identities, but as processes, beings in continual becoming. Their grasp of reality deepens as well. They recognize that the material world, as tangible and unyielding as it seems, is but a veil of interdependence and impermanence. No longer bound by the illusion of separateness, they perceive the interconnected web of existence, where all things arise, dissolve, and return to the stream of the unknown. This awareness does not negate suffering, but contextualizes it. Suffering becomes not a flaw to be fixed, but a teacher, a signpost pointing toward the edge of what they've known, urging them to expand. Their wisdom, however, is not the kind that can be bought, taught, or neatly summarized in doctrines. It is the wisdom of scars and sleepless nights, of moments when the ground fell away and they were forced to fall through. It is the knowledge that arises when theory no longer suffices and one must confront the enigma of being directly. The accumulated teachings of sages, while useful, become secondary to the immediacy of their own experience, the raw, unflinching insight that only arises when one stands alone in the silence of self-realization. This wisdom is not static. It is alive, breathing, and constantly reshaped by the act of being present to life's paradoxes. Moreover, those who have walked this path have surrendered the illusion of control in its many guises. They have seen through the grand charade of the ego, a self-created architect of narratives designed to maintain the illusion of permanence and safety. The ego's stories, I am a success/failure, a winner/loser, the hero/villain of my life, are not truths, but survival mechanisms, masks crafted to insulate the psyche from the existential terror of uncertainty. But the fire reveals these masks as fragile costumes, borrowed from the cultural scripts of a world that clings to the myth of stability. To surrender illusion is not to discard the self, but to see the self as a fluid, ever-changing phenomenon rather than a fixed entity. These individuals learn to observe the stories they tell themselves with the detached curiosity of a scientist, noting the compulsions, the fears, the ways in which identity contracts into roles, roles into separations, and separations into suffering. They do not abandon these masks entirely. After all, social masks are necessary for functioning in the world, but they no longer confuse the masks with the truth of who they are. This discernment extends beyond themselves. They recognize the masks of others with compassion, understanding that all beings are, in some measure, trapped in the illusion of, I am this, not that. Ultimately, their awakening is not a destination but a radical opening to the present moment. They understand that the vastness of their own potential is not a future achievement, but the boundless now, a field of infinite possibility that exists independent of the stories we construct around it. The fire, in destroying what is not essential, leaves them with a paradoxical freedom, the freedom to embrace both the agony and the beauty of existence, to hold paradox in one's heart without need for resolution. They are no longer defined by what they lack or what they have endured. They are defined by their willingness to see the masks of masks, and the silent presence that witnesses all. In this seeing, they find not answers, but a profound stillness, a silence that is not empty, but full of the music of being. And in this music, they are not performers or listeners, but the harmony itself. In the relentless cacophony of modern existence, where the world's noise, endless notifications, the hum of machinery, the rush of traffic, and the never-ending chatter of social media bombards our senses, and within which our own minds furiously unravel in cycles of anxiety, judgment, and self-doubt, a profound truth begins to emerge. Silence is not the absence of sound, but the presence of awareness. The authentic seeker, a rare individual in this age of distraction, has learned to navigate this chaos not by resisting it, but by turning inward, by cultivating a deliberate stillness that becomes both a refuge and a revelation. This stillness is not passive, it is an active, conscious act of stepping back from the frenzy, a choice to pause the mental treadmill of obligation, comparison, and expectation. It is the quiet that follows the final keystroke of an email, the silence after a heated conversation, or the hush that settles when we unplug the relentless devices we've mistaken for life's essentials. In such moments, when the mind is stripped of its usual defenses and distractions, the soul begins to stir. Here, in the hallowed chamber of inner silence, the mind becomes a still pond, reflecting the subtle ripples of intuition, those faint, almost imperceptible nudges that are often drowned out by louder, more ego-driven voices. These whispers, often dismissed as daydreaming or idleness, are in fact the gentle compass pointing toward one's true north. They guide us to questions we've long avoided. What do I truly desire? What path aligns with my deepest values? What am I avoiding? In this sacred space, the answers do not arrive as thunderclaps of epiphany but as quiet realizations, soft as dawn breaking over a misty horizon. The cultivation of silence is not about erasing the mind but allowing it to settle, like sediment in rushing water, until clarity reveals itself beneath the surface. It is practiced in the simple act of mindful breathing during a morning ritual, in the focused awareness of each step on a forest trail, or in the tender act of sitting with a thought without judgment. These practices are not escapism, they are acts of courage, for they require confronting the rawness of the present moment, unfiltered by distraction or pretense. True wisdom, then, is not the accumulation of facts or external validation, but the ability to discern the unspoken truths that arise in stillness. It is here that we recognize the interconnectedness of all things, the rhythm of our breath mirroring the pulse of the universe, the stillness of a snowy landscape echoing our own potential for inner peace. The seeker, guided by this wisdom, learns to guard the sanctuary of silence fiercely, knowing it is the wellspring from which creativity, compassion, and courage flow. In a world that equates productivity with worthiness, the act of listening to silence becomes radical. It is a declaration that there is value in slowing down, in being with the unanswered questions, and honoring the quiet between the notes of life. For it is in that space, where the noise falls away and the soul speaks in whispers, that we begin to live not just in the world, but from it, aligned with the deeper truths that transcend the clamor and connect us to the infinite. Therefore, the seeker must cultivate a similar disposition, one that is rooted in humility, curiosity, and a deep desire for authentic growth. They must be willing to look beyond the superficial performance, to see the elaborate stage set, the intricately designed costumes worn, and the carefully focused lights that create an illusion of perfection. Yet, despite the impressive exterior, they must know that the real work is happening inwardly, in the depths of their own heart and mind. This requires a willingness to peer beyond the veil of appearances, to seek out the underlying truth, and to confront the complexities and mysteries of their own inner world. The true path is not about putting on a show for others, seeking to impress or gain validation through external means. It is not about projecting a false image, hiding behind a mask of pretension, or trying to conform to societal expectations. Rather, it is about embarking on a genuine inner journey, one that is marked by honesty, vulnerability, and a commitment to self-discovery. This journey requires courage, resilience, and a willingness to confront the unknown, to question one's own assumptions, and to challenge the status quo. This, in turn, requires asking crucial questions with discernment, questions that penetrate to the very heart of one's being. What are my true motivations and intentions? What am I seeking to achieve, and why? What are the underlying fears, desires, and biases that drive my thoughts and actions? How can I cultivate a deeper sense of awareness, wisdom, and compassion, and apply these qualities to my daily life? What are the obstacles and challenges that stand in my way, and how can I overcome them? By asking these questions, and seeking out the answers with honesty and integrity, the seeker can begin to peel away the layers of illusion, and reveal the truth of their own inner nature. This is the path to true transformation, one that is marked by a deepening sense of authenticity, purpose, and fulfillment. As you navigate your spiritual or personal growth journey, it's essential to assess the role of your teacher or guide and determine whether they are facilitating introspection and self-discovery or inadvertently creating dependence on external authorities. The question to ask yourself is this teacher guiding me inward or pulling me outward? In other words, does their teaching encourage you to explore your own inner world, to engage in introspection, self-inquiry, and connection with your own inner wisdom? Or does it focus primarily on external practices, beliefs, or deities, leaving you reliant on the teacher for validation or direction? A true guide, one who is genuinely invested in your growth and empowerment, will point the way inward. They will help you discover the answers within yourself, rather than simply providing you with a set of predetermined solutions or dogmatic beliefs. This type of teacher acts more like a coach or facilitator, creating a safe and supportive environment for you to explore your own depths, rather than a director who tells you what to do or how to think. When a teacher guides you inward, they empower you to tap into your own inner wisdom, to trust your intuition, and to develop a deeper understanding of yourself and the world around you. This approach fosters independence, self-awareness, and personal responsibility, allowing you to become the author of your own spiritual or personal growth journey. You begin to recognize that the wisdom and guidance you seek are not external, but rather an inherent part of your own being, waiting to be uncovered and nurtured. On the other hand, a teacher who pulls you outward may create a sense of dependence on their authority, leaving you feeling uncertain or lost without their guidance. This can lead to a lack of self-trust, as you may begin to rely solely on the teacher's interpretation or opinion, rather than developing your own inner compass. While external practices, beliefs, or deities can be useful tools for growth and exploration, they should not replace the development of your own inner wisdom and discernment. A true guide will encourage you to question, to seek, and to explore, but ultimately, they will trust that you have the capacity to find the answers within yourself. They will provide support, guidance, and encouragement, but they will not dictate what you should believe or how you should live your life. Instead, they will empower you to become your own guide, to trust your own inner wisdom, and to embark on a journey of self-discovery that is authentic, meaningful, and uniquely yours. In the end, The role of a true teacher or guide is not to provide you with all the answers, but to help you discover the questions that will lead you to your own inner truth. By pointing the way inward, they empower you to become the author of your own journey, to trust your own inner wisdom, and to live a life that is authentic, fulfilling, and true to who you are. Is this ritual awakening my soul, or merely entertaining my mind? In an age where spirituality is often commodified and rituals reduced to aesthetic experiences, it is crucial to pause and ask, what am I truly nourishing through this practice? A ritual, in its purest form, is not a passive performance but a sacred doorway. It should not seek to distract the mind with fleeting pleasures or create the illusion of depth through elaborate costumes, incense, or ambience. Instead, it ought to penetrate the surface of the self and awaken the soul, a transformative process that demands presence, vulnerability, and introspection. Are the practices involved designed to create a profound inner shift, to connect with deeper states of consciousness, to facilitate healing and transformation? A ritual that truly serves the soul is one that transcends the physical act. Consider the ancient rites of passage, a warrior's initiation, a shaman's vision quest, or a monk's meditation retreat. These practices are not for show, they are engineered to dismantle the ego, confront shadow aspects, and dissolve the boundaries of the individual self. They might involve physical discomfort, emotional catharsis, or immersive silence, tools to pierce through the noise of daily life and access the unspoken truth of the heart. A soul awakening ritual might involve intentional stillness to quiet the mind and attune to inner guidance. Symbolic acts, e.g., releasing a written burden into fire, that represent letting go of stagnation. Rhythmic repetition, like drumming or chanting, to induce trance-like states and access non-ordinary reality. Connection to nature or sacred spaces to mirror the participant in the eternal flow of existence. Or are they primarily focused on creating a pleasant sensory experience, an aesthetic pleasure, or a sense of belonging, without touching the core of the soul? Too often, modern rituals, whether in wellness retreats, curated ceremonies, or even self-help routines, are designed to feel good externally, masking a lack of inner depth. A candlelit evening with rose petals and soft music might create a fleeting sense of serenity, but does it challenge the conditioning of the self? A group singing session in a trendy yoga studio might foster community, but does it unravel the subconscious patterns that bind us? The danger lies in mistaking comfort or ritual for transformation. When we substitute experience for truth, we risk spiritual bypassing, using the language of growth to avoid confronting pain or responsibility. Such practices may offer temporary relief but fail to evolve the soul. True ritual has an inner purpose. It is a means to an end, the awakening of consciousness, not the end itself. The essence of ritual lies in its why. It is not the incense or the drum that transforms us, but the intention behind them. Just as a sword in the hands of a warrior serves a purpose beyond its sharpness, a ritual exists to catalyze evolution. This awakening might manifest as sudden clarity about life's purpose, the integration of fragmented self-aspects, a direct experience of unity beyond the illusion of separation, healing ancestral wounds through embodied action. Ultimately, a genuine ritual is a mirror to the soul's unmet yearning. It asks, what are you running from? What are you longing to become? When the ritual is over, the act fades, but the shift remains, a seed planted in the soil of being. To confuse ritual with entertainment is to confuse the plow with the harvest. The true measure of a ritual is not found in the applause or the Instagram post, but in the quiet moments afterward when the soul whispers, "Now I am home." In contrast, the distractions that proliferate in modern spiritual seekers, new gurus, trendy methodologies, online communities, and material products, often cater to a superficial engagement with growth. They promise quick fixes, transformation through acquisition, or validation through belonging. While these may offer temporary comfort or insight, they risk diverting attention from the inner work of uncovering our inherent nature. The allure of novelty can become a crutch, keeping the seeker preoccupied with external validation rather than the quiet, persistent effort of self-inquiry. This is not to dismiss the value of guidance or community, but to emphasize discernment. A true teacher or practice does not demand constant consumption but instead illuminates the path to inward discovery. True awakening is not about accumulating tools or titles but about dissolving the illusions that obscure our natural state of wholeness. It demands a willingness to sit in the discomfort of uncomfortable truths, the parts of ourselves we've labeled unworthy, the contradictions in our lives, the gaps between our ideals and actions. This is where dedication becomes sacred, the commitment to show up, again and again, for the work that cannot be outsourced to books, retreats, or hashtags. A path that honors simplicity might look messy, ordinary, or even mundane to the outside eye. A morning spent cooking with mindful attention, an evening spent in silence with the moon, or a quiet conversation that transcends the need for approval. Ultimately, the heart of the matter is this: does the path you walk ask you to remember who you are, or to become someone new? The former is a return to your inherent stillness, the latter a pursuit of an idealized self. As the river flows effortlessly toward the sea, so too does the soul seek its source, without striving, without resistance. Let the path be a mirror, not a disguise, a return to the simplicity of breath, the clarity of presence, and the unwavering trust in the intelligence of your own being. The capacity to discern what is authentically spiritual, beyond mere appearances or external rituals, requires a profound inner clarity, a kind of mental and emotional stillness that allows one to observe without distortion or bias. This clarity is not simply an intellectual exercise but an invitation to cultivate self-awareness, to turn the lens of inquiry inward and examine the subtle undercurrents of one's emotional and psychological responses. It demands that the seeker move beyond the surface-level allure of symbols, titles, or even charismatic practices and instead attune themselves to their own inner terrain. When engaging with a spiritual teacher or practice, the discerning seeker must ask, how does this interaction land in my body and soul? Does it awaken a sense of humility, gratitude, or wonder, an open-hearted resonance with the mystery of existence? Or does it ignite a shadowy undercurrent of self-doubt, the urge to measure up, or a subconscious drive to spiritualize their ego by competing for recognition, wisdom, or enlightenment? A true spiritual encounter should not inflate the sense of self with pride or shrink it through shame, but instead melt the rigid boundaries of the personal ego, fostering a quiet, expansive awareness of interconnectedness. Similarly, when participating in a practice, whether meditation, chanting, or service, does it leave the seeker feeling like a return to their unadorned, true self, or does it become an act of performance, a checkbox to prove one's devotion? Authentic spirituality often feels like a homecoming, a loosening of tension, a softening into presence. It might bring with it a sense of being held in a larger current of life, a trust in the unknown, or a deepening of inner peace that is not contingent on external validation. Conversely, practices that trigger anxiety, confusion, or frustration may signal misalignment with one's authentic path, perhaps reflecting a projection of one's inner struggles onto the practice itself or an attempt to impose control over what is inherently beyond control. This discernment is a lifelong conversation between the outer world and the inner listener. It requires courage to confront discomfort without running from it, and the humility to recognize that the answers are rarely found in grand gestures or quick fixes. Instead, they often emerge in the quiet spaces where self-compassion meets curiosity, a space where the seeker is both student and witness, learning to trust their innate wisdom rather than outsourcing their spiritual authority to others. In this way, the journey toward enlightenment is not about finding the correct path, but about becoming fluent in the language of one's own heart, where clarity and confusion both serve as teachers.